I plan ghosting my BF without disclosure, after being taken advantage. I have a good job and make $60,000 per year. My boyfriend of 5 years owns his own business, but it isn't really profitable. We rely heavily on my income to get us by. I pay for 2/3 of the mortgage, he pays the other 1/3 most of the time. I also pay our electric bill, internet, groceries, vet bills, and if we ever go out to eat or do anything it's expected that I'll pay. I also have my car payment and other expenses. I've talked to him about the burden this puts on me financially and he just gets upset when I bring it up. He also gets upset when I tell him I can't afford certain things or I'm trying to cut back to save money. I understand he's struggling, but so am one and one just don't see any end in sight. It's been 5 years and nothing has improved. I love him, but I don't know how much longer I can do this. I currently have $20 in my bank account and I don't get paid until Friday. Any advice, recommendations, etc. is appreciated. Relevant comments. You're being taken advantage of and he only complains. Very well said. I dropped $200 plus on groceries this weekend, as I do most weekends, and when I got home he complained that I didn't get certain things. I can't deal with paying and not getting any appreciation. Yeah, these tantrums are pretty common with him. He literally always tells me I'm not supportive. It drives me crazy. Does he do anything? He does help cook sometimes and he maintains the outside of the house, which I appreciate. At least you don't have kids. He talks about having kids in the future. Not at this rate, sir. He shockingly wants me to stay home with the kids. How would that even be possible? Do you have any ownership of his business? I have no ownership of his business. At one point I wanted to marry him, but I no longer do. Get a separate bank account. We don't have a shared bank account, so that's good. Is it an actual real business / what kind of business? It's a real business, and a money pit. He's definitely putting in the hours, but the return doesn't reflect that. I'm not sure what he's doing wrong, but I don't have time to figure it out for him. I don't want to get too specific because I'm paranoid about people figuring out who I am, but it's related to agriculture / heavy machinery, etc. He works outside every day and also works alone. More clarification. Commenter, by the mortgage you mean yours, right? Please tell me you're the only person on it. You need to cut him off. Like now. Unless he is disabled, he is a grown-ass adult and needs to go get a job. Why are you supporting your boyfriend to grow his business that you have no right to? While he is getting his lifestyle subsidized by you, he is taking advantage of you. You need to stop allowing this because say if in 1 year business takes off it becomes worth thousands of dollars, you can be left broke with nothing. Is that really worth it? It's not. You need to tell him he pays half of everything. 50-50 going forward, or he moves out and you rent out the other space in your home. And you won't be broke all the time. You need to really think of the benefits of your relationship because it seems like you make good money. OP, thank you. He always asks when I'm getting a raise, but my income isn't the problem. Unfortunately, both of our names are on the mortgage. I'm tempted to put it up for sale, but I don't know how he would feel about moving forward with selling. It's a tough situation. Commenter, why would you support a grown-ass adult you aren't even married to for 5 years? It makes no sense. OP, yeah, I don't know either. I made stupid choices in my 20s. Update. 1 month later. I tried to break up with him but I couldn't. We had a long conversation last night about what's been bothering me. I can't deal with the emotional abuse and feeling like I'm not cared about. At first he was angry. He was yelling, calling me ugly, telling me he never loved me, wishing he never met me, playfully punching my arms and legs. Then he became incredibly emotional and started crying. He said he was sorry and admitted that something is wrong with him. I don't know what to do. I feel done with the relationship, but I can't stand seeing him get like that. I've never seen him cry. We're not married, but we have a house together, so it's complicated. I just don't know how to end this. Update. How do I get out? I've been with my boyfriend for 5 years. Over the past 3 years the relationship has gotten very ugly. I feel like I don't even know who he is sometimes. He's emotionally abusive, financially abusive, manipulative, and he recently started getting more physically abusive. I tried to break up with him over the weekend and he said some horrible things to me and then proceeded to punch me, kick my legs, and put an electrical cord around my neck. He said he was just joking and playing around, but it didn't seem that way. He said he was just angry and that's why he did it, but he's sorry and started crying. I don't know how to leave him, especially since we bought a house together. I feel trapped, scared, and hopeless. Relevant comment. Connecting with a domestic hotline now. Not sure what to expect but hoping to get some guidance. Thank you for your support. Update. Can't even visit with my mom. He told me I could visit with my mom and he would go run some errands, but I needed to leave when he was on his way home so we would get back at the same time. It takes me 30 minutes to get to my mom's house, so that's an hour of driving time. He finished the errands faster than expected, so I only got to be with my mom for a short time. He was upset that I didn't leave at the exact time he did. I'm so tired of this. Texts transcribed. Abuser is labeled pause for piece of shit. Pause, thought you were leaving when I said I was leaving? Oop, leaving now? Pause, figured you'd do this shit again? Oop. Pause, told you I was leaving an hour ago? Oop, I was literally only there for 2 hours. Pause, yeah, remember when I said I was fine with it if you leave when I leave? New text, must have forgotten? Oop, I didn't realize it was going to be such a short amount of time. Pause, yeah, remember when I said I wanted to get this shit done with so I don't have to bake out in the heat? New text, must have forgotten that too. Update. I've been with my boyfriend for 5 years and the abuse has gotten progressively worse over the last 3 years. It started as emotional abuse and now it's becoming more physical. I just want to leave, but I don't know how to go about dealing with the house. Any help would be appreciated. Relevant comment. I am on the mortgage and pay the majority of it each month. Would selling the home be an option? I don't think he could afford it by himself. Editor's note, there are lots of helpful comments left by lawyers if you or anyone you know are in a situation where you need info. Update. I'm leaving him and not saying a word. I've been with my boyfriend for 5 years and he's gotten progressively more abusive during that time, emotionally, physically, financially. I'm at my breaking point and have a plan to leave. My dilemma is he's been acting overly nice for almost 2 weeks, since the last abusive episode, so I feel bad about leaving without any notice or explanation. I appreciate his effort to be nicer to me, but it feels very forced. I'm second guessing myself. Update. I finally left. Why do I feel so terrible? I left my abusive boyfriend today without notice, but I feel awful. I know he's probably upset and that hurts me. Why do I care so much? His mom has been trying to call me and sending me texts about how I blindsided him. She doesn't understand what he put me through. No one fully does. I'm at my breaking point. I just want to be free of all of this. When will this get easier? Editor's note, some really sweet comments on this one too. Update. Update to going broke in my current relationship. I posted on here over a month ago about my toxic relationship and I'm so appreciative of the support I received during that time. I figured I would provide an update just letting everyone know as of today I have officially left that relationship. I moved back in with my parents for the time being, hired a lawyer to help with selling the house, and got a realtor. It has been an extremely difficult process, but I know this is for the best. I can finally start rebuilding myself and my financial situation. Thank you all again for your advice and support. Update. Starting over at the age of 30. Moved back in with my parents after getting out of an abusive relationship. Feeling like a failure, but also incredibly grateful for the support of my parents. Looking forward to finding myself again. Choose your partners wisely, everyone. Let's dive into the second story. Story 2. I have low self-esteem and tell people that I was diagnosed with cancer after they dismissed me. I have always been a filler person. My parents each had a child they obviously favored. My mother favored my younger sister, my father and my younger brother. I am the friend that is ignored in a group. I am the employee whose birthday is forgotten. I'm the person who doesn't get dates. I've gotten used to it. As a result of being this agreeable, filler, boring person, I think the people around me don't realize that I'm a real person who has needs like everyone else. The prime example was when I said that my chest hurt and I coughed all the time. The people I spoke to, and I know only a few people, said that it was not a big deal and that I'd be fine. I'd never complained before, so I should be fine. I took that to heart and wondered if I really should have told people that I didn't feel well and wondered if I was making it up in my head. It took me a long time to actually tell the doctor my symptoms because I thought I was overreacting, but I had to get checked out. Well, it turns out that there was something wrong with me. I have stage 2 NSCLC. Editor's note: lung cancer. I'm still independent and handling this alone. I drive myself to and from appointments, I pick up my mediation, I reason with doctors and insurance. I haven't slacked in housework or at work. In fact, I've worked even harder. Today at work, I told my friend I couldn't help her move as a favor because I had a medical appointment that day. She pressed me for more details and I just said that I have treatment for NSCLC. I didn't want to give more information than that. My husband complained that I told her the information gleefully as if I'm happy about the news. I told him I'm happy to be diagnosed because it's proof for myself that I'm human with needs like everyone else. I wasn't crazy. He said I shouldn't act like this. My husband has been unstable and touchy about random things this year, so I don't know if he has a point. Ada? Edit to the same post, same day. I'm in therapy. My therapist and I are working through things and she's been very helpful. I feel somewhere between a filler person and an automation. Filler people aren't real, they don't have complexities in life and they exist solely to make others shine. Machines don't get sick. The diagnosis was something that was concrete. I exist, I'm a person, I'm not crazy and it's not in my head. I don't want attention from others. I cried and felt relief in the same moment. Thanks to the comments, I think I know why my husband has been unstable and touchy. The beginning of this year, the love of his life got into a car accident and broke her femur. She survived and is healthy now. I think that could be part of what's concerning him. My illness is a reminder that she could have died and she could still die and life is unpredictable that way. I alone wouldn't inspire such emotion in my husband. The comments made me realize that my husband likely felt helpless at the concept of death. I traced back when he started to become touchy and moody and realized it was when she got into that car accident. My husband is asked to help. But there's nothing for him to do. I have taken care of everything so far and will continue to do so. Relevant comments. You buried the lead with that my husband's love of his life got in a car accident statement. The love of his life, my husband's first love, the one that got away, whatever you want to call it. They were childhood friends. They dated and broke up when my husband was young. She's a passionate person that wanted to live a passionate life. My husband never got over her and blames himself for losing her. I met him shortly after he broke up with her. We dated for 2 years. Through bits and pieces I've realized how much she means to him. He was an hour late to our wedding. I found out later that his father had to talk him out of leaving me at the altar. It would embarrass his family. He had doubts because of her. I mentioned her once and he snapped at me to never mention her name again. He looks her up constantly as she frequently posts on social media. They remain tangentially connected. He is always interested in news of her. He loves her deeply still, I know. She got into a car accident earlier this year and broke her leg, her femur specifically. I didn't think to connect his moodiness and general upset with that until now. She could have died in the crash. My illness is a reminder to him of how fragile life is and that she could have died and she could still die purely due to chance. You are the main character in your own life. It's funny because when I'm alone I feel normal and when I'm amongst strangers and acquaintances I feel normal, but when I'm with anyone else I actually know, I've already been relegated to the background. My therapist said that my lack of emotional demands or what she calls reciprocal emotion or behavior means that I attract those who don't care to reciprocate. We've touched on it but we haven't worked through this yet, lot of other things to tackle. If he's offering, let him help you. I genuinely can't think of anything for him to help with. It just so happens that I'm good with planning and executing tasks, so I have a handle on things. On the flip side I'm not creative or imaginative. I know I'm being blasé but it's not as if I'm hiding how I truly feel. It's unfortunate that I have an illness but I don't feel upset or scared. What happens will happen. I don't know what my husband could help with. I've handled everything. I've even set up plans in case I do get hospitalized. I don't think I've relegated my husband to the sidelines. I made a ton of dumplings and other food and stored them in the freezer so that if I'm hospitalized he'll eat something nutritious instead of takeout. He can cook, he just doesn't like it and won't do it unless he had to. I have always centered people around me. Maybe that's why I feel like filler. There is no consensus bot on Ada, but reactions were mostly NTA with some UTA for how you treat yourself. Update posted, 8 days later. The past week has been a roller coaster of emotion for me. My therapist had suggested that I write my thoughts and emotions in a journal, but I always convinced myself there wasn't enough time in a day. Writing that post made me realize that I was dealing with a lot of emotions that I suppressed. I did resent the people in my life who just took and took without giving back. I had told nobody besides my therapist about how much I feel like a ghost of a person and how I pushed things down and never complained. So I spent hours writing down my thoughts in a diary. I realized that I needed to be more honest and stop tiptoeing around people to make them comfortable. I told my husband that I knew about his past with his ex-girlfriend. I knew that they had unresolved feelings and he needed closure about her and their relationship. He kept checking her social media throughout the years, but it intensified this year after she was in the car accident. He was shocked that I knew. I encouraged him to reach out and get that closure he wanted. We had a good conversation. He hugged me and reached out to her pretty much immediately. I think he was waiting for that push from someone. He was so happy after the conversations they had, he was glowing. She's apparently coming to our city in a month and they'll meet in person. He's been more affectionate and genuinely lighter, like there's a weight off his chest. I went through the motions of life. I started ignoring calls from my parents. I didn't want to help out anymore. I was too tired. My mom called and said I was being arrogant and moving away from my family before asking me to help with something. I didn't reach out to my friends. I have only a few and we would text every day. I realized we texted because I always reached out. I told someone else about my diagnosis. My neighbor Nancy is a woman in her late 70s. She's one of the few people I feel seen by. She cares about me, and if I had told her about my health issues she would have told me to go to the ER. I know why I didn't tell her, but I wonder why I hope for care from people who have demonstrated no care for me instead of those that do. She was so worried for me. We had planned a fun day trip to see a flower festival next spring. I drove home on my first week of the second cycle, and for the first time I was exhausted. I had to pull over and rest for an hour before I felt well enough to finish driving home. I was so exhausted I didn't want to move and I sat in my driveway. It hit me then that I didn't have NSCLC stage 2A. I had lung cancer. I could die. I just started sobbing. All I could think of was the stupid flower festival. I haven't lived my life. I love my husband, my family, and my friends. But I don't want to be married to him, I don't want to cater to my family, and I'm tired of my friends. I want to live. I want to be well enough to drive and see the flower festival with Nancy. It's only been a week and a half of change and my emotions have gone from low to really high and back low. I've been dreaming of my life after I beat cancer and leave my husband and friends. I don't even know if I can stick with it, but I am determined to be strong. My therapist says change from within can start small or big. She's proud of me and thinks I can get through this. Story 2. I just walked my husband making out with my sister after she lost her husband in motorcycle accident. I am absolutely devastated right now. I don't know what to do. I don't even know where to start. My sister Lisa lost her husband, Jimmy, 2 years ago in a motorcycle accident. She did not take it well and closed herself off from the world. A year ago, she reached out to us and told us she was having a hard time adjusting and said that she needed help. I helped her find a good therapist and she has been getting her life back on track. My husband, Rick, felt bad for her and started spending a lot of time with her. For the past 6 months, they have spent more and more time together. At first I was fine with it because she was finally becoming like my sister again. She started smiling. I was so happy for her, and so was my husband. They started spending more time alone for me, which I didn't think much of at first. Then they started spending more and more time alone and I got a little jealous. I told my husband I would like it if we could spend more time together and that I was feeling a little neglected. He said okay, but nothing changed. Today my sister came to my house crying because she had a dream about Jimmy. My husband and I comforted her, but I was a little annoyed because the second I let her in my house she ran into my husband's arms. We all went into the living room and sat down. My husband asked her what happened in the dream and she actually asked me to leave the room because she didn't feel comfortable telling me. I was so upset at this point I immediately left and started tearing up in the other room. I was in the other room for around 10 minutes when I heard a loud sound in the living room, so I got up and went there. I could not believe what I saw. I am literally crying my eyes out while typing this up. They were fucking making out. On my couch. In our home. WTF do I do? My entire fucking world has just been shattered in front of my very eyes. I ran out of the room because I was going to vomit right there and locked myself in my room. My husband hasn't even tried to come in. I have been crying nonstop. Please help. The two people I trusted more than anything. What the hell do I do? My sister lost her husband in a motorcycle accident and was devastated. She reached out to me for help and got close with my husband. I just walked into them making out. I don't know what the hell to do. Edit. Well, I answered the door. Rick walked in, wouldn't even look at me. He mumbled something and went and sat on the bed. I was so angry that he wouldn't even look at me that I almost left right there. I asked him what the hell was going on with him and my sister. He sat there for a few minutes without saying anything while I was crying my eyes out until I finally yelled at him to answer me. He whispered that he loved her. At this point I lost it. I started yelling, how could he do this to me? Do these past 10 years mean nothing to him? Literally dropped to my knees and asked how could he betray me with my own sister and then tell me he loves her? He was quiet the entire time until I stopped yelling. He said that he had been regretting not experimenting with other women before we got married and that he shouldn't have married the first girl he was with. I was stunned and asked if he even ever loved me. He said yes, but that after spending time with my sister he realizes she is who he wants to be with. I had no words. I didn't have any clue what to say. All my life was falling apart in front of my eyes and I was scared. I told him I might be pregnant and he said that he would support me. I asked how and he said he didn't know, but that he was leaving me to go be with my sister. He apologized to me and told me I deserve better than him and that he will do whatever he can to help me and the baby, and if I agree to divorce him he will give me everything. Just once out of our marriage. In that moment I felt like I hated him and never wanted to see him again, so I screamed at him, fine, just get the fuck out, You ruined my life, I hope you're a fucking happy, you piece of shit. And then he had the audacity to try to hug me. I flipped out and pushed him off of me. Someone knocked on the door, then he told me that he still loved me and we would figure everything out, and left. I decided to call my parents and tell them what happened. My mom dropped a bombshell on me that my sister told her that she had feelings for my husband and that she wanted to be with him. Why she didn't tell me this I have no fucking clue, but I feel like everyone is against me. Right now I am sitting on the computer looking up lawyers in my area. My entire life has gone to shambles within hours and I am terrified. Tomorrow I am going to go get a pregnancy test. I just hope to fucking God I am not pregnant, because I do not want to have this piece of shit's baby. God, guys, I am so fucking upset right now. I want to fucking drink right now, but I won't in case I am pregnant. Jesus, I hate my life. I wish I had the heart to kill myself right now. First update. Thank you everyone for your kind words and PMs. Your words really helped me when I was in the lowest possible spot I have been in. A lot has happened since I woke up. First of all, I am no longer going to refer to Lisa as my sister because she is not my sister any longer. I woke up this morning and felt like complete shit and didn't want to get up. I went and got a pregnancy test and thank fucking God I am not pregnant. It was bittersweet because we have been trying to get pregnant for a while now and I never thought I'd be so glad to see I wasn't pregnant. I am really upset over the way things have turned out and now I'm having these weird feelings that I want to be pregnant after all. I don't know what's going on, but it's just adding on another difficult layer of shit going on right now. A little while later I left the house to get groceries and when I opened my mailbox there was a letter in it from Lisa. After I got home I opened it and read it. I am not going to rewrite it because I cannot even stand to look at the letter again. Basically it said that she apologizes for how things turned out and she explained to me that she was very vulnerable after losing her husband. That after spending so much time with my husband she started to fall for him and that she thought she would never love anyone else again, so when she realized she loved my husband she knew she couldn't let him go. No one else can fill the hole in her heart. Lisa promised they never physically did anything before the kiss I caught them in, and she went on to say she needs me in her life and that she hopes I can forgive her. I can't write any more about this right now, I might add in the rest later. I am a fucking mess. Rick called me a little while ago. I didn't pick up the phone, so he texted me and told me that he still loves me and that we can find a way to work this out. I don't know what the fuck that means since he just left me for Lisa. Now I'm really confused because now that I'm not pregnant, I want to be, and I want my marriage to not be over even though I hate him for what has done to me. And why would he text me that? Is he changing his mind? I am so confused. I wish these past few days never happened so there would be nothing wrong still. I know I shouldn't forgive him if he wants another chance, but 10 years of marriage. We were going to be parents. Fuck, I am so confused and hurt I can't even think straight. TDLR, Rick left me for Lisa. I'm not pregnant, but I'm having weird feelings about that. Lisa left me a letter in my mailbox and then Rick attempted to call me. He texted me something that confused me even more. Now I have no idea what is going on and I don't know what to do. Is he changing his mind? Update 2. Hello everybody. First of all, thank you for all your advice. Thank you for all the people that PM'd me. I didn't want to make an update, but I feel like you guys deserve to know what happened after all the help I received. One of the most common questions I got was about my mother. Well, I talked to my mother again and she informed me that she has known about my sister having a thing for my husband for quite some time. She didn't want to tell me because she said she was trying to get my sister to give up the idea and she did not want me to be hurt. She got my sister to agree to let it go a few months ago and never heard anything more about it, so she thought it was over. In the letter I got in the mail, I did not want to write it all down because it was very painful. A few days has passed and I am ready to share some more information, but please don't ask for more because I am simply not comfortable sharing the rest of the letter. In the letter Lisa apologized for her behavior but also went on to blame me and said that I flaunted my happiness in front of her with my husband. She wrote she couldn't stand to see how happy we were and how he genuinely loved me and she had no one. She told me I should have reached out to her alone and that I had no business getting my husband involved. I don't even know what that is supposed to mean. He's my damn husband, I am not supposed to involve him in a serious matter like that? She also went on to say that my husband told her he never really loved me and that she was who he really wanted to be with and asked me to not contact him. She wants me to go through her if I want to say anything to him. And that she will bring over the divorce papers in a few weeks. I have had a few days to process this information, but the more I think about it, the more confusing it seems to me. Then I got more information today. Lisa is pregnant. She's fucking pregnant. She says it's Rick's. Rick called me as soon as he heard my father informed me. I picked up the phone only because I wanted to hear how he could lie to my face and tell me nothing happened between them before that kiss. He told me that he was so sorry and he didn't want it to happen this way. That my father wasn't supposed to tell me. I started crying and asked him how he could get pregnant with Lisa when we were trying for a baby. Then he said something that stunned me so much my head is still spinning from it. Rick told me he could still get me pregnant if I wanted. WTF? I screamed at him, why the fuck would I want to be pregnant with his child when he is a piece of shit? He told me he wanted to be with both me and my sister and that he thinks he is polyamorous. I was so shocked that I started laughing. After I stopped laughing, he tried to say something else, then I heard Lisa enter the room and ask who he was on the phone with. He said nobody and hung up. A little later my sister texted me and told me she would bring over the divorce papers in a week and expected me to sign them on the spot as my husband is giving me everything. She gave me a heads up that they are getting married next month and I am invited to the wedding if I agree to pretend like I was never even romantically involved with my husband. I am literally at such a loss right now. Who the fuck is this man and where is the one I married? Why the fuck after all this shit do I still want to be with him even though I know I can't be? I just want the man I've been with for the past 10 years back. I hate Lisa and no longer consider her my sister. She has ruined my entire life. But what do I do about my husband? He just texted me right now saying he still wants to be with me, loves me, and wants a baby with me. Why is he doing this to me? Why am I even considering it? Fuck. TDLR, Lisa and Rick are getting married. Rick wants to continue being with me but Lisa doesn't want me to ever talk to him again. She said I can still be in their lives if I pretend like I was never with him. What the fuck do I do? Obviously I know I can't be with him, but why do I even want to be? Why am I considering it? Update 3. I know this update is long overdue. To be honest, the reason why I didn't update anymore was because I made pretty poor decisions that I was ashamed of and didn't want to face the reality of my situation. I wish I could come here and tell you all that I was strong and cut Rick and Lisa out of my life and moved on with my life, updating to tell you how much better off I am without them a year later. Sadly, that is not the case. I fucked up bad. One commenter, /user/badaboom, told me that I have something called a sad person brain. I remember reading it and being in denial, but now that so much time has passed, this was absolutely the truth. I wanted to do anything to make my pain stop. So I did. I would appreciate it if I didn't get rewarded for the choices I made. What is done and I need help now. Thank you in advance. If you remember my last post, Rick and I were trying to get pregnant before he left me for my sister. And wanted to even after he did because he thought he might be polyamorous. At the time I laughed at him because of how absurd it was. But after he hung up that call, the offer got more and more tempting. I started thinking about it. Becoming enraged at my sister for doing what she did to me. Thinking that I could get back at her by doing it. Throwing it in her face that her new boyfriend doesn't love her more than me after all. I was so angry that I heavily considered doing it. The more I thought about it, the more I wanted to out of sheer petty revenge. Don't get me wrong. I also wanted my husband and my life back. But the thought of seeing my sister's newfound happiness and smugness over me come crashing down gave me a pleasure that I never would have imagined. My sister tried very hard to keep my contact with Rick limited. I think she was afraid he would come back to me if she didn't. She was only able to accomplish this for a few months. Rick tried to contact me in numerous ways during this time, but it was always very brief. I was still angry and non-receptive to his advances. But he started becoming more and more aggressive. Telling me how much he loved me, how much he missed me, and how much he still wanted me. I even tried blocking him on certain social media accounts, but he kept trying on others. I know I should have just blocked him on everything, but I just couldn't. The more he tried, the harder it was for me to say no. Unfortunately, this resulted in us getting back together. I told him I wouldn't stay with him unless he left my sister. He swore to me up and down he loved me more than anything, and facing losing me made him realize it and that my sister was nothing to him. Everything was amazing between us again. It was like old times and like my sister didn't even exist when he was with me. Yet every night he would go back to her. Stupidly I decided to believe him when he said he was just waiting for the right time and excuse after excuse about how bad he felt for her. Things felt so much better when he was back with me. I didn't want to lose him again. Unfortunately, I ended up getting pregnant because I did not recontinue my birth control from when we were trying for a child before any of this happened. At the time we were both ecstatic and everything seemed like it was a dream come true. I had my husband back, we were having a child, and my life was no longer in pieces. I was so happy that I turned a blind eye to everything obviously fucked up about the situation. I didn't want to see it, I just wanted to stay happy. It wasn't long before Lisa found out. My entire family turned on me. My parents told me how it seems like I did this just out of retaliation and to hurt Lisa. They weren't completely wrong, but I mainly just wanted my old life back. Long story short, Lisa went absolutely berserk. She threatened to kill me and sent me a long list of never-ending harassing texts, emails and calls. I endured hell from her and my family for months until I had to get a protective order. This only resulted in my family hating me even more. Now none of them will speak to me, and Rick has been issued an ultimatum by them to cut me off or be cut off. He hasn't decided on what he is going to do yet, but it seems like he is leaning towards cutting me off as he has been communicating with me less and less these past weeks. Not to mention there has been mounting pressure from the family for him to finalize the divorce, but it hasn't happened for various reasons. The last thing he told me was that he feels badly but that he loves her, and passive-aggressively insinuated that I tempted him into trying to get back with me. Which is complete bullshit because he was the one who kept perusing me. He said that I shouldn't have gotten pregnant because now I've made his life so much harder. How I let myself believe he was the man I married again is beyond me. Now all I see is how clouded my judgment has been and the utter mess I've gotten myself into. How I wanted to be happy again so bad I destroyed my life even more trying to get that back. I'm 8 months pregnant and scared. I don't know how I can raise this baby alone. I really don't want to give her up for adoption. And the pain of losing my husband twice is unbearable. Even though I know it was because of my own stupidity. I still love him and can't believe everything he has done to me. Losing my entire family over this has also been a huge kick when I'm at rock bottom. Most of our mutual friends have distanced themselves from us because no one wants to take sides, but it's obvious they are all quite disgusted with the way things have turned out. I have no one left now. Please help me on Reddit. How the hell can I fix the mess I've made my life into? TDLR, I am pregnant with my husband's child who left me for my sister. He hasn't finalized the divorce yet and has been bouncing between picking which one of us he wants to be with, but seems to be ultimately choosing her. I'm going to have my baby in a month and have no idea what to do. I'm hurt from losing everyone around me over this. I'm so afraid and confused. I just don't know what to do. Let's dive into the second story. Story 2. My husband's stalker wants to sabotage my marriage after her injury. Now suggesting one-on-one meetups. So, I'll start by saying I'm generally quite a secure person and have never felt like I had any issues around this until I read a message sent to my husband yesterday, and I'm kinda spiraling. Sorry this may be long. For some backstory, my husband does downhill biking. Has done since he was very young, knows his stuff, he's out there every day. Generally rides with the same group of guys, but they mostly stick to weekends. My husband goes out every day of the week luckily because his job allows him to. If he's out on his own, generally weekdays, and the dogs are free, he'll take the dogs. They love it. So around 6 months ago he was out in the morning, with the dogs, and ended up coming home earlier than usual. While he was out he found this girl who fell off and had badly injured her arm/wrist. As you can imagine, Hess done the same numerous times, knew exactly what to do and where to go to get seen quicker. He got her to the car park, packed the dogs and bikes up and took her to the GP who referred her to hospital, and he came home. All good. Around a week after this, one of the guys he rides with sent him a screenshot of a post in a Facebook group that was made for people specifically who build and maintain the bike trails. It went something like, "I'm looking for someone called, insert husband's name here, who helped me last week when I fell and got me to hospital." He drove a husband's truck and had 3 dogs, then listed our dogs' names. She had posted in a few groups before being linked to the group for the trail builders, who my husband goes out there with. My husband isn't on social media, so he said he could send her his number. She texted him to double check she had the right person. He said it was and that he was glad she was feeling better and he was happy to help. She offered him money or to take him for lunch, which he declined, and just said again that he was happy to help. They text back and forth every now and then, her initiating, and it's mostly "Hey, how are you, hope you're well," etc. Until she starts getting better and can ride again, it turns to, "Hey, we should hit the trails sometime." Now, without tooting his horn for him, he's very good. Used to ride competitively when he was younger, same with much of the guys he rides with. Most people at the park know who they are and generally if they hear them coming, will just get to the side and watch them pass. He tries to decline her offer in a way not to offend her, but Therese no way she can keep up with them. There's a section that's just big jumps to practice on. He says maybe next time Hess on those he'll give her a shout and they can meet up there. Eventually that happens and he gives her a few tips. Which then turns into her texting him more often about biking, asking for him to tutor her and just general stuff. This goes on for the next couple months. There seems to be a friendship starting. I've never once had any concerns about this and was quite happy for him to continue, and they do. So yesterday, Monday, he went out with the dogs, and bumped into her. Said they spoke for a while and went on a cycle with the dogs to wind down before he came home. She started texting him when he got home, and I can see these messages coming through the iPad as I was using it. To be clear, he's not hiding the texts, he openly leaves his phone lying around, no passcode. Lets our daughter play on it. Happy for me to use it. Doesn't get weird or secretive about it in the slightest. He knows the iPad and laptop are linked to his phone and it can all be seen by anyone using them. He has never gave me cause for concern. It's her intentions I'm not too sure on at this point. So anyway. The dogs. We have 3 working gun dogs used in the fields regularly, and while they can look like they're running riot down these trails, they are extremely well trained and tuned into whatever my husband is doing. Which becomes more apparent when he's not on the trails, and they're following, watching his every move. These texts started on about the dogs for a bit when she sent a text which ended in the following: like a slave looking to please their master. Admittedly, I don't care for emojis and the texting garb people use nowadays. I don't even know what the face means, frankly. But something about this made me feel icky, and I feel like there's an undertone going on here. He replied, but seemed to ignore that last comment. However, this caused me to think/look back on her communication, and feel like I've noticed a few red flags. 1. She always initiates. 2. If she doesn't get a reply, she seems to keep sending messages until he replies. 3. Not once has she ever referenced or acknowledged the fact that he's married or has a family. Even when he mentioned that he's been away for my birthday, or that he's going to our daughter's dancing show. She'll change the subject as if she's pretending we don't exist, or to close down any mention of us. 4. She often makes excuses for them to meet up. One-on-one. I'm sure there's more, but I don't want to scour through every message and feed into this more than I already have in case it's nothing, but am I crazy for thinking there may be something going on with her? I don't want to bring it up in case it is nothing and I look like I'm being paranoid. It just isn't sitting right. I'm also pregnant, and the hormones are doing their thing. Should I say something? Or leave it and monitor this more closely for a bit? Or is this the effect of a 30-something pregnant mom whose husband seems to be aging like a fine wine, and any female he meets doing what he loves, being in amazing shape due to the hobby? Relevant comments. Usually right too, I'm kind of like your husband. I do a lot of helping people, in a different vein though. And there are a lot of rather lonely and awkward people out there who just keep messaging once they have my contact info, men and women. I think you've handled this with grace. But I think it's totally reasonable for you to have a convo with hubby and just say, dude, she's pretty pushy and you're not doing anything wrong, but I'd appreciate it if you'd shut her down and just tell her that you're not in a position to be a coach and your ride time is focused so you can't help her. She sounds a little starstruck and needy, but he's not doing anything wrong here, so I wouldn't make it a big hairy deal. OP, thank you, I just don't want to be the pregger wife who's demanding he blocks women because I'm making things up in my head. Lizer petty, he ran into her while he was out walking his dogs? Was that a planned meeting? Does she live near you? Aw hell nah. That's stalker behavior. He needs to cut her off now. OP, no, the bike park. He was up with the dogs when she spotted them and called one over. Honestly, I have no idea where she lives. I know very little about her other than she's much younger than me. Inevitable_rate 9652, totally not on topic, but what are gun dogs? Sounds like your husband is just being nice, but that chic is being scandalous. Sometimes men don't pick up on this stuff, so I'd bring it to his attention and talk about how you both should handle this psycho disrespectful woman. OP, hunting dogs, hours are used weekly for flushing/retrieving. Thank you. I've had enough comments to make me feel confident enough that I'm not being dramatic. We'll be talking to him about it once our daughters are in bed tonight and go from there. Top comments. Exploding Whale 17. It sounds like your husband is uninterested in her and she is pushing boundaries. Tell your husband you feel uncomfortable. He may welcome a chance to strategize how to push her away more clearly. It would probably help if he told her he was busy with his wife and children and not interested in connecting, although he's sure she'll find a group to bike with. He could block her if he feels he needs to. He sounds like a great guy. Congrats on the coming baby. Update. It escalated quickly. So, my last post got a lot more responses than I thought it would get. I wasn't going to post an update, but feel like I owe it to all the people telling me to trust my gut. For those asking why my husband hadn't been more abrupt with her, in a nutshell, he always tries to keep the peace. I downplayed how well known he is in our town. He comes from a well-known family in our area, and was a downhill rider in the UCI, and features in various YouTube channels. People come here specifically for the bike trails, and typically wherever he goes, Therese usually a handful of people who recognize him and want to say hello. It's not a huge town, everyone knows everyone kind of place, and, like anyone, he would never want people to come away from any interaction with him with a sour taste in their mouth. After our daughter was in bed, I spoke with my husband, told him my thoughts, and he agreed she was being inappropriate, and that he in no way done or said anything that would indicate he was alright with it. He hoped by ignoring it she would get the hint and leave him be. He didn't want to make things awkward or embarrass anyone and admitted he probably should have said something. So after reading everyone's comments, there were loads of amazing ways people suggested shutting her down, which in hindsight, would have been an amazing way to stop her in her tracks. However, he didn't want to ruffle feathers, so we went with we're starting to get ready for the baby and have lots to do / prepare and simply don't have the time or energy to be spent on the bikes, or meetups, and he will be unavailable to her for the foreseeable suggestions. He typed it up, handed it to me for my approval, and I hit send. Minutes later his phone pings, I'm in the kitchen, Hess in the living room, and I see his eyebrows raise and he just looks at me. I go over and he just hands me the phone. The fucking neck on this girl astounds me. She replied, okay. Do you think we could meet up quickly tomorrow? My heart sank. And I knew exactly what that meant. I burst into tears. In my head this was the start of my world crumbling. My husband tried calming me down and asked me what I'd like him to do, block her there and then, or ask what she wants to see him for. I wish I'd just told him to block her, but for some reason I wanted to know more. He replied asking what meeting up would achieve. She just says Therese stuff she would like to talk to him about face to face. I felt like I was literally being punched in the chest and being winded at this point. He eventually gets the point across that he is not going to meet with her and drags it out of her. She tells him that at some point feelings started, that turned into fantasies, and that basically he could do whatever he wanted to her. That I didn't need to know about it and she would be happy to keep it that way. As she put it, our thing. It was more graphic than I'm willing to type. I felt like I was still keeping a level head on it until this point. I lashed out, got very, very angry. Started crying uncontrollably. My body was vibrating with anger. I've barely slept. Woke up crying. Felt like absolute shit all day today. I've already got in touch with our friends who run these Facebook groups she joined and asked them to remove her and make sure she doesn't join again. My husband replied last night and told me it's sorted and I don't have to worry about her. I didn't see the text he sent, but it's there on the iPad, but I can't bring myself to even open the message app after seeing what I saw. It's not fair that someone thinks they can just do something like that regardless of how it's going to impact an entire family. Currently, I don't want him leaving the house. I don't want him to ever go back to the trails. I don't want the dogs even going up there. The fact she has even touched my dogs makes me sick. So there we are. I still feel like my life's slipping away from me. Like someone's trying to steal it. My confidence is shattered. My eyes sting. My head hurts from crying. Don't feel like eating. Don't think I've ever felt as low as I do just now. My husband is trying his best to comfort me, but it will take a while, I guess. He feels very guilty, despite me telling him he's done nothing wrong. I can't believe how quickly my life just changed with a stupid text. So, thank you to everyone telling me to believe my gut. And everyone else who took the time to comment. Edit, I just want to add, I'm not controlling my husband. I'm not holding him hostage. He had to take them out today. The bike park is almost in our back garden. I'm describing how I feel just now. Like it's a personal attack on me and my family. And I know this happens all over the world. My eyes were never open to it. This man's baby is about to burst out of my body. I don't feel attractive in any sense of the word right now. I feel I'm well within my rights to be a little distraught after seeing a text from a much younger, much fitter girl describing in graphic detail the things she wants my husband to do to her. Relevant comments. Brief horror, you'll be alright, and honestly take comfort that this is probably a lot of pregnancy hormones and your husband loves the absolute soul out of you. He handled it well, so well, public figure or not, and he's by your side. He's been transparent and upfront and kind. She tried to crash the party and failed miserably. He's all yours and he wants it to stay that way. I hope you feel better and can do some rationalizing in the meantime. SoxFan21, your life didn't change, you're fine. If nothing else, life got better because you now know that your husband would rather be loyal to you than carry on a secret affair with some hornball side piece. Women pursue married men, men pursue married women. It happens, but your spouse is rock solid. So make sure your actions match your words pertaining to how he did nothing wrong. Good luck with the baby. Cranky Southerner, did your life really change because you found out someone wanted to sleep with your husband and would do so despite the fact that he is married and has a family? Do you think she's the only one who would be willing to do that? Do you think there are no men out there who would be willing to sleep with you? Your marriage works because you and your husband made a commitment to one another. That commitment is what your lives together are built upon. It's a promise, really, that you made to each other. And it looks like both you and your husband are committed to keeping that promise. It's only natural that other people will find our partners attractive. They see in our partners the same things we see in our partners. Some of those people will have no qualms about destroying a marriage or a family if it means they get to satisfy their desires. The only thing that stands in their way is the promise you and your husband made to each other. The only thing that's different now is that you know the name of one of the people willing to destroy your family for her desires. Your husband seems intent on keeping his promise to you. I really don't think you have anything to worry about. Story 3. Golden stepsister got pregnant by my boyfriends. Now mom sides with her to impress her new husband. In a crazy twist of events, my stepsister dropped a bombshell claiming my boyfriend is the father of her baby, stirring up chaos and mistrust among our family. So, I met my boyfriend Tim 26M 3.5 years ago. We hit it off. He was great and sweet and we get along perfectly. Until I introduced him to my family. My mother had gotten remarried a few months earlier. I like my stepdad and we get along fine. My stepsister Sarah, who is 26F, and we're friendly but not besties by any means. She is kind of an intense party girl, and being in our 20s we only saw each other at family events. So I introduced Tim to my family, at which point we learned that Sarah used to date Tim when they were 20. It was only a few months and Tim said they broke up because she made out with another guy at a nightclub while drunk. Sarah got upset and started saying I had to break up with him because it was weird. She called Tim her sloppy seconds and tried to get our parents to force us to break up. I said no. It had been years since they'd been together and I didn't even know Sarah when she was dating Tim. I got pretty upset because my family jumped on the bandwagon of saying we should break up. For the past few years at any family gathering, Sarah would mention how they used to date and act like I stole her boyfriend, and has been selling that narrative to my family and friends. It became obvious that she was jealous. But I liked Tim, so we just ignored it and kept dating. So now a few years later Tim and I live together and we've been talking about marriage and stuff, and I recently had a conversation with my mom about how I thought Tim was going to propose because he's not exactly subtle, and we've talked about this for a while. At which point Sarah, who just moved back in without parents, walked in. She started asking a bunch of invasive questions about our relationship and being weird. Sarah is 4 months pregnant. The father, she said, was some deadbeat guy she'd hooked up with who wants nothing to do with her, but she wants to keep the baby. I've been making an effort taking her to appointments and offering to help babysit and trying to be excited for her. Until a week ago when my stepdad sent me a long text saying how I can't marry Tim because he is the real father of Sarah's baby. I was immediately very upset and confronted Tim, who was completely shocked and said Sarah was lying. He said there's no way and he didn't cheat on me and he would gladly have a paternity test to prove that. Unsure, I asked Sarah for more details about when they slept together, which she says happened a few times. She was shaky and went back and forth on details. The dates and times don't match up with what I can remember of what Tim and I have been doing. She also said she came to our house to see him, but since COVID I've been working from home. So I can't imagine that they managed that. I'm pretty sure now that she's lying to get us to break up because she's still jealous. But now my family are involved and have been sending me hateful messages saying I need to break up with Tim and let him be with Sarah. She's telling everyone he's in love with her and I'm keeping him from her. She has no proof and he strictly denied everything. I texted her asking for proof of any of this happening and she sent me some fake Photoshop screenshots that I can tell are fake. Where she's put Tim's name over a friend's number and pretended he was messaging her. I checked and the friend all but admitted it to me and tried to laugh it off. She badly photoshopped the timestamps. I actually don't know what to do now. I believe Tim and we are still together, but this has kind of thrown a wedge in everything. Sarah has poisoned my relationship with our parents and my family. I feel sick to my stomach and Sarah is now saying she won't give me a paternity test. For now I've cut everyone off except Tim, but I don't know what to do now. Update. I had kind of forgotten about this post because life has been so hectic. But baby was born yesterday and reminded me of this. A few people have been asking for updates, so I spoke to my parents. Tim offered to do a paternity test. We gave them an ultimatum to believe me or have me out of their lives. Initially my parents backed Sarah. Mostly because she was pregnant and had nobody else. The deadbeat who knocked Sarah up reached out to me privately because he had been sure that he fathered Sarah's baby, as they'd been hooking up at the time and he wasn't sure what was going on. Sarah told him she was having the pregnancy terminated apparently. Deadbeat reached out to my parents and said he wanted to fully support the child and Sarah. Turns out he's a plumber with a very good income and wants to be a dad to his kid. But he doesn't want to be with Sarah at all. Sarah Steele won't admit to lying about the affair, but after realizing people weren't falling for it, she switched to faking a mental illness to cover for her deception. I do believe she is mentally unwell, just not in the way she tells it. I have also figured out what a master manipulator she is. She fed my parents tidbits and small lies to make her giant lie seem more credible. Tried to slowly turn them against me so they more easily believed Tim was in love with Sarah. Things are still strained with my family, but I feel I'm making progress and Sarah has moved on to getting attention for being pregnant/sick, so she's not obsessing over Tim anymore. Though I refuse to be around her. Baby was born today. I pray for that little guy, it's going to be a long and difficult life with that mother. My cousin went to visit and sent me a photo of the birth certificate. Father is listed as deadbeat guy. And finally Tim did propose, but we're planning a long engagement. Sarah is not invited to the wedding. Let's dive into the second story. Story 2. My husband is obsessed with my boss and swears they matched on Bumble. I started this job about 1,5 years ago. I can't say what it is because I want us to stay anonymous and our country is very small, so my boss would probably be recognized. The moment I started, I felt like I was in the right place. My boss, the owner of the company, is very cool and kind. She's self-made and she loves her job. She does a lot of the dirty work herself that bosses who has 30 to 35 employees wouldn't have to do. But she just loves it. On top of that, we have a 6-hour work day, our salaries are 20% higher than the market, and we have 7 paid vacation weeks a year. Her reasons? She appreciates us and she's getting richer anyway. I was so proud of working with a woman like her, so I wouldn't shut up talking about her to my husband. Especially in the beginning. My husband was as fascinated by her as I am until he met her in a company party last Christmas. She must have been beautiful when she was young. She could have been a model. I think his fascination became a crush or an obsession, or maybe worse, love. Now he follows her on SM. Her accounts are private, but he stalks her with my account. He also follows the company IG and likes every picture she's in. He asks about her all the time. She's a very private person, but when her divorce from her ex-husband was finalized in the beginning of this year, we all found out because he started showing up to work. He owned half her company now and he started to try to make changes in our work hours and salaries. We found out that her husband had cheated on her with a younger girl who he also tried to employ in our company. She still works with us. She, probably lawyers involved, eventually convinced her husband to sell her back his share. We're still in this process now. My husband has followed all this and he was so sad for her. And so angry. How could anyone do this when they had a woman like her? If it was him, he would cherish her, love her, blah blah blah. Who leaves a woman for a girl? I got very angry and told him that all men prefer younger women if they could choose. He laughed at me and told me only losers do that. The last drop was last Friday. We were out for a movie night and we saw my boss with a young man. He looked in his mid-20s. My husband lost it. He didn't know that she dated younger men. He wanted us to go say hello, but I refused and yelled at him to control himself because he looked pathetic. When we got home, he was frenetically going through her SM. Until he found the guy and he sighed in relief. The guy was her nephew and we didn't see the whole company, but they were out with other family members. My husband was so happy, like a weight lifted off his chest. I lost it on him. I started crying and yelling and told him he was in love with her, and he was shocked when I pushed and kicked him out of our bedroom. I locked the door. He stood outside trying to calm me down, telling me he loved me and I'm his girl and always will be. Then he said something that ruined me even further. It's not like someone like her would look my way. I haven't slept since then. Why is he feeling like this? Is it love? Infatuation? She's too old for my husband, so what is it? And why would he think he couldn't have her? He's very handsome and still young. She should feel lucky a young handsome man likes her. And does he mean I'm less than her to accept him? Or is it purely her money and status? He refuses to admit anything. And what can I do now? I love this job. I love the benefits. Thanks to this job our life has improved and we can afford more than just the necessities. I'm starting to hate my boss though, and I hate myself for idolizing her in front of my husband. Edit, sorry this is getting longer. But I have spoken to my mother, sister, granny and some friends about this. And about what happened last Friday, and they all think I'm making a big deal out of nothing. Update 1. Hi, I'm in so much pain and I don't know what to do. I don't want to do something stupid while hurting. I got a lot of good advice last time I was here, so I don't know, maybe you can help me this time too? My old post is linked in my bio. I hope you read it before this one because I don't want to tell the whole story again. I went against my family and friends and asked my husband for separation. I felt like my heart couldn't take it anymore. My intuition told me that my husband wasn't all mine. This was shortly after the event at the movies. My husband was in total confusion. He said that I was making a mistake making a mountain out of a molehill, but he moved in with his brother however. We decided to start couples counseling too. It went well the first 3 weeks or so, but my husband became more and more reluctant to participate, and sometimes he just canceled on me last second. He stopped showing up this month and he also stopped calling and texting me. I was even more heartbroken, but it just solidified that my intuition was right and that I was doing the right thing, seeing that he is not interested in working on us anymore. I chose not to quit my job. I still loved it with all the heartbreak and I really needed the benefits, like I'm the only one I know who is having a 3 weeks paid vacation around Christmas and New Year. I never see my boss anyway and she doesn't even know of my existence. My husband eventually stopped being active on Instagram, and I thought it was normal because we were going through adversities uni yesterday when his brother shared my husband's stories of the night. My husband was in a restaurant holding a woman's hand. I could only see her hand. So my husband has just blocked me and my family and friends from seeing his updates. I commented WTF? And this morning my husband called me, for the first time in month, totally scared, and started begging, please don't ruin this for me, please don't ruin this for me. I told him, what do you mean? He said, don't tell her about us. I never made the connection at first. It never ever crossed my mind even. That woman in the picture was my boss. I started crying and screaming at him. How could you do this to me? How could you tell me that it was all in my head when it's obviously all over your Instagram? He said it just happened. I dumped him and he was single and just happened to find her on Bumble. He begged me not to ruin this for him. She knows he's in the process of divorce, but she doesn't know that he already knew who she was or that she was the boss of his STBX. They have been seeing each other for 6 weeks, about 2 weeks after I asked him to move, and it is getting serious. He begged for a good 5 minuets, telling me how he hasn't been this happy in all his life and that I shouldn't ruin his happiness since, again, I was the one who ended our marriage. I have been crying since this morning. I don't know what to do. I want to ruin him and his happiness, but I don't know if I have any right to do that, and I'm so worried about losing my job. Please help. Edit for new information. Okay, my husband has been calling me nonstop and I have now answered him. He is panicking about me telling her everything, so he begged me to give him the chance to tell her himself. His words were, I never stalked her or creeped on her. I just fell for her and was scared that she would think I was creepy since you thought the same. Give me a chance to tell her the truth in my own pace, so at least she doesn't think I'm a liar or a freak like you seem to think. He still swears they matched on Bumble. I didn't know what that is until now, but it is like Tinder? I'm just devastated right now. He has no regards for me and my feelings. Everything he is thinking of is not to scare her away. When I told him this, he said that I was the one who left him. People fall out of love and that okay, and no one's fault, and that I was in the right for ending the relationship, but I was the one who ended it all the same. Don't hurt us and I promise to give you everything you want. She is happy with me, so don't hurt us. Last update. I talked to my boss yesterday, Monday, after lunch. I told her everything. Basically how I was so happy I found this job, how I looked up to her and was proud to be working for someone like her, and that this rubbed off on my husband, who grew more obsessed with her each day. I apologized for using obsessed because I didn't know how things were between them, but that it was how I perceived his feelings. I told her about the day at the movie and how it basically made me realize that our issues were greater than I thought. I told her that I know and accept that my marriage is over and that my husband didn't love me anymore, and that the reason I'm telling her now isn't to judge or blame her, but to let her know the whole story, because it's just fair that she knows that he has been following her life for over a year now. Because from what I understood from my husband, you are under the impression that you just matched with him on a dating app, I said. She was silent the whole time I was talking, just listening to me until I mentioned the dating app, and that's when she interrupted me. That's not how we met. He has been a patron at my gym for the past 6 months, maybe a year, she said. I know her gym, it's the one across our workplace. She works out there every morning before coming work. I didn't know he had joined it because I knew him to be a member at the gym near our home. He has been, without telling me, working out just across the street from me every morning without telling me. She looked like how I felt, shocked. I apologized and told her that he has kept dating her a secret from me and that he begged me not to talk to her, telling me that he hasn't been this happy and so on. She didn't say much, just thanked me for telling her. Today she asked if she could talk to me. She apologized for everything that happened to me and asked if I needed any help. I said no. She thanked me again. When I got home, my husband was there. He had called me at least 50 times, but my phone was on silent. He was crying, calling me bitter and vindictive and pathetic. He said I ruined his relationship and future. She is scared of him now and it is all my fault. He wants me to tell her that he is not dangerous nor is he a pervert. He wants me to tell her that I was the one who wanted a divorce and that people fall out and in love and it is nobody's fault and neither is it creepy. He hasn't done anything wrong. He stayed faithful to me and would have stayed that way if I didn't kick him out. He asked me if I ever felt unsafe with him, to make rumors about him being a stalker and a creep. I should tell the truth. I asked him to leave and that I'm starting the divorce, and from now on he could only contact me once I got a lawyer through them. I have been crying since he left. We haven't seen each other for weeks and he had no feelings whatsoever for me. He looked demented and full of sorrow like a broken little boy. How could he change this fast? Before we separated he held me and begged me to believe him and his love for me. Was it all a lie? My whole entire relationship? Good night and thank you for the support. This is a throwaway and I will be deleting it soon. I just thought I would update before doing that. Story 4. Mom sat me down on my 18th birthday and told me I need to start contributing to stepsister. I recently celebrated my 20th birthday almost 3 days ago. I live with my mom, stepdad, and stepsister. My stepsister is 15 years old, but she's the worst 15-year-old I've had the misfortune of meeting. She's arrogant, mean, and always tries to compete with me. We hate each other and always have because she's just a crappy human being. My dad passed away when I was 3 years old, and I barely have any memories of him. However, I do have plenty of memories of fighting with my mom from my childhood, which made me think that had my dad still been around, I would have had an easier time growing up. My mom married my stepdad when I turned 16, and he moved in with us. But she'd been with him since I was 13, so after 3 years of dating, they got married and moved in together. Even before their marriage, my stepsister was a total brat, and once my stepdad moved in, she became much more difficult to tolerate because she was now 10 times more annoying and constantly kept trying to pick fights with me. I told my mother about this several times and even complained about her behavior to her dad, but they dismissed it as normal sibling rivalry and refused to interfere because they believed that she'd grow out of it. But I knew the real reason they wouldn't interfere was that my stepsister was the golden child of the family for both of them. Of course, my stepdad would always take her side since she was his biological daughter, but even my mother would go out of her way for her, and that was what really hurt because she'd never do that for me. Growing up with my mom, I realized that we were fundamentally different people, and she didn't like it one bit. I was a little tomboyish as a kid and was more into sports, games, and cars, while my mother wanted me to learn makeup right from the age of 7, learn to do my hair, and wear dresses instead of my shorts. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these things, but they just weren't me, and I didn't feel like I could properly express myself if I was constantly trying to impress my mom, and that led to a lot of fights between us. She always pushed me to do more feminine things when I didn't want to and just be a mini her all the time, but I didn't like that and would fight back. I was my own person, but she never understood that, let alone respected it. But my stepsister was the kind of daughter she'd always wanted, which is why I guess she took a liking to her instantly, and that really broke me, even as a teen, because here I was trying my best to make my mother like me for who I am, and suddenly this girl comes along and takes her away from me. For my stepsister, my mom became the mother that I'd always wanted, and there was really nothing sadder than that for me. It was bad enough that my mom was now on her side, and my stepsister would make it even worse with her arrogant behavior. I just couldn't stand her and wanted to leave for college as soon as I could. So I was really happy on my 18th birthday because I graduated from high school, and soon enough, I'd be on my way to the college of my choice. I already had a sports scholarship in the bag because I play lacrosse, and I'm supposed to make the move in the fall, so I'm all set to leave this place behind. That's why I'd expected my mother to surprise me for my 18th birthday since this would be the last one I'd be celebrating at home with her. From this year onwards, I'd only come back home for the holidays, so I expected some enthusiasm from her. But I guess I'd forgotten just how unwelcome I was ever since my stepsister came along. I was a fool to expect anything at all. Not only had my mother not done anything special for me, but in the afternoon when the house was empty, she sat me down to have an important discussion about the future. She told me that my stepsister was supposed to start college in a few years' time, and since she wasn't a student athlete, she wouldn't have a sports scholarship like I did, and her grades weren't good enough for her to qualify for an academic scholarship either, which meant that she'd have to pay her tuition in full. So my mother now wanted me to help pitch in for my stepsister's college fund, or else I wouldn't be welcome to live here anymore. I was shocked by that last bit, and when I asked her to repeat herself, she explained that she and my stepdad had decided that they'd start saving up for my stepsister's college fund now to avoid any financial trouble in the future. And since I was an adult now, they expected me to contribute as well, or else they wouldn't let me live here anymore as a member of this household. I had to pitch in or leave permanently. I was stunned that she was even making this demand because obviously, I wouldn't be able to help. And to say that they would cut me off if I didn't help my horrible stepsister out was just nuts. I couldn't believe that my mother was saying this, and I could literally feel my stomach drop because of how serious she seemed about this. I didn't know what to say to her at that point, and I definitely didn't want to fight with her, so I told her I needed some time to think and went back to my room. My mom's a nurse, and my stepdad is a pediatrician. Both of them work at the same hospital, and that's how they met as well. I don't know what their exact income is, but I'm sure they make enough money to support my stepsister without getting me involved and making me support her as well. It was just ridiculous that she even asked me to contribute, and for someone who doesn't even like me, I had my stepsister, and I had a good relationship, then I might have even considered it. But she was a horrible human being, and I hated her. So why on earth would I contribute to her college fund? It didn't make any sense. Also, I was going away to college myself in a few months, so I didn't know how exactly she expected me to send money when I myself would need them to send me money. Even if hypothetically, I did get a job there and started working to support myself, it seemed unfair to ask me to pitch in for my stepsister when I would probably need that money for personal use. I couldn't even say no because of the threat of getting kicked out, since I would definitely want to come back for the holidays and didn't want to stay on campus throughout the year. And I didn't know if I'd even get approval for that. I'd basically be homeless once I'm done with college, and that was a terrifying thought. I mulled this over in my head and came to the conclusion that there was just no way I could make this work, and neither was this fair for me. But instead of arguing with my mother, I decided to talk to my grandparents. This time, I didn't want to negotiate with my mom only to be let down in the end, and honestly, I just didn't think the argument would even be worth it. She was never going to see my side, and she'd always only think about her favorite, not me. My mom had basically forbidden me from speaking to my grandparents, her parents. My dad's parents live out of state and were just occasionally in touch. She said that my grandparents were fragile and didn't need me troubling them, and I was only allowed to talk to them about safe topics, and I could only visit them with her, never unsupervised. I'd once dropped by their house unannounced in my junior year to spend time with them on my own, but when I came back and told Mom, she'd been hysterical, and I decided not to visit them by myself again because I didn't need that drama. I'd had a nice time at their place though, and they didn't seem very sickly or fragile to me, but I didn't want to cross my mother, so I'd follow the rules she'd set for interacting with my grandparents until now. However, that day, I knew that I would have to break the rules and go speak to them if I wanted them to help me convince my mother. My grandparents were probably the only people in the world who could force my mother to do something, and this time I really needed them on my side to avoid getting kicked out because there was just no way I was getting a job and working through college only to pitch in for my horrible stepsister's college fund. So after a while, I decided to talk to my mother and somehow get her to repeat the conditions she'd set for me so that I could record her saying it. I love my grandparents, and I know they love me, but since I was going to them to ask for help to stand up against their own daughter, I thought it would be in my best interest to make sure I had all the proof I needed so that they believe me. I kept the sound recorder on and spoke to my mother, asking her to tell me exactly what she expected of me once I was in college, and she repeated herself. She sounded exasperated, but thankfully she didn't think much of it and didn't seem to suspect a thing. Then I told her I was going out with my friends, and I'd tell her my decision once I was back home. She seemed okay with that, and because it was my birthday, she didn't push much either and let me go. So, I went straight to my grandparents' house a few streets away and told them everything. And by everything, I mean everything. Initially, I'd only meant to tell them about the absurd demand that my mother had made and how she'd kick me out if I didn't contribute. But soon enough, I found myself spilling over with emotions, and then I was just crying while I tried to explain my situation to them. I guess I wasn't dealing with my mother's rejection of me as well as I'd like to believe. I told them all about how badly I was treated at home, and they seemed shocked while I was talking because whenever I visited them with my mother, I seemed relatively happy and relaxed. But that was just a front that I was forced to put on because my mother didn't want my grandparents to worry about me or her because they were too old and sick. Honestly, I never bought that theory because my grandparents were just in their early 60s and looked absolutely healthy to me. I feel like the only reason my mother didn't want me to talk to them and be around them was that she was afraid that I'd blurt out the truth about her someday, and her parents would get to know how she'd been mistreating me, her own daughter, for the sake of her stepdaughter. Then her parents would be furious with her, and she'd be in huge trouble, which is precisely what happened after I told my grandparents everything. They comforted me for a while and told me that they'd fix everything. I didn't know what exactly they meant by that, but my grandpa looked really pissed. Once I regained my composure, they handed me a $100 bill and told me to go out with my friends that evening because it was my 18th birthday, and I should make it special for myself. They promised me that they'd make everything right, and I wouldn't have anything to worry about by the time I was back, which made me feel a lot better. So, I decided to hang out with a couple of my friends because they'd been trying to get me to come hang out with them that day anyway. I must have been out with my friends really late because I didn't want to go home, and also because I was finally celebrating my 18th the way it was meant to be celebrated. Around 9, I received a text from my grandparents asking me to come back to their place instead of going home, so I did exactly that. Surprisingly, I hadn't received any texts or calls from my mother even then, which was strange because if my grandparents had spoken to her regarding what I told them that day, then she would have been dying to confront me about it. So, it seemed a little weird that she was so eerily silent. I went back to my grandparents' house at 10 o'clock and, once inside, freshened up. My grandparents sat me down and told me that they talked to my mother, and now I had nothing to worry about. They told me that they'd asked my family to leave the house they'd been living in so that they could transfer the ownership to me. Apparently, that house had been a wedding gift from my grandparents to my parents, and they'd been living there ever since. But today, once they learned how my mother had been treating me, they realized that they needed to do something about this. They talked to her and asked her nicely to take back whatever she'd said to me and treat me better. But instead of admitting that she'd messed up, she decided to be disrespectful and told my grandpa to mind his own business instead of interfering in matters he didn't understand. She actually believed that now that I was an adult, I needed to start earning and giving back to the family, or else I wouldn't have a place in her home anymore. That infuriated my grandpa because of how unfair it was, and after a really nasty argument, he told her that she needed to vacate that house since it was still legally his property as he'd never formally transferred the ownership to her, and he still had the power to evict her. So, she could either choose to be a better mom to me or leave the house, and she'd chosen the latter. No surprises there. She told my grandpa that her priority was her own family now and not me, as if I wasn't a part of her family and wasn't related to her by blood, and said that she'd empty that house by the end of the week if that's what he wanted, then disconnected the call. So, that was why I hadn't heard from my mother. My grandparents also explained that it wasn't just what I told them today that had made them take this drastic step, but it was how she'd been behaving with them for the past couple of years, ever since she got married. She believed that her husband and her stepdaughter were the only family she needed now and would visit her parents only once or twice every 2 months. They'd given up trying to make her visit more often, but they would ask her to at least let me talk to them or come visit them, and to that, she'd always make up some excuse and claim that I was too busy, which I really wasn't. She just didn't want to let me come see my grandparents out of fear that I would tell them the truth. She'd very cleverly manipulated all of us into staying away from one another for her own selfish reasons, and now it had all finally blown up in her face because now she had to vacate the house she'd lived in for almost 2 decades, all thanks to her manipulation and deceitfulness. I was really upset that she decided to choose my stepsister over me, but I was even more disgusted and angry that she'd actually thought that this was all justified somehow. I was disheartened at the time, but I'd also given up any hope that my mother would ever love me as much as she loved my stepsister and had started to see her for the person she really was. I didn't expect anything from her anymore. I was actually kind of glad that I was spending the night at my grandparents' place because I absolutely didn't want to see or hear from my mother at the time. I hated the fact that I was her daughter, and I hated her for what she'd done even more. The next morning, I went back home with my grandpa to pack some of my clothes and the essential belongings so that I could move in and live with my grandparents until my mother and her family vacated the house. It was around noon, but nobody had left for work, and even my stepsister was at home. All of them looked angry and disappointed, but I didn't speak to them and walked straight past them to get to my room and pack my stuff up. My grandpa had accompanied me inside and helped me pack, but around 10 minutes into it, my mother came into the room and demanded to speak to me in person. I said no, but she kept insisting, so I finally caved and let her take me aside so that we could talk. She told me that she'd been bluffing on the phone with her dad, but she couldn't actually afford to move out on such short notice, and now she needed me to talk to Grandpa to fix this. I was appalled that she even had the audacity to make another demand for me after whatever she'd done, so I obviously said no right to her face, point blank, and told her that she'd lost the right to even speak to me after what she'd done. She'd made her choice, and now she had to stick to it. And then she said that she didn't really mean for me to get hurt and was only trying to teach me to be responsible when she asked me to pitch in for my stepsister's college fund. She had tears in her eyes while she told me that if I just deemed her worthy of one conversation instead of going straight to my grandparents to complain about her, then I would have known that my mom didn't actually mean anything she'd said. She only wanted to teach me to be responsible with my money, and all of the money that I would send for my stepsister's college fund would actually go into a separate account that she planned to let me have later on if I talked to her about my feelings just once. Then she told me the truth, and I would have known that she was never going to kick me out, and especially not over something as petty as this. But apparently, I would get her kicked out of her own home, and that really hurt her. She told me I was free to do whatever I wanted to but asked me to remember that she did love me and always wanted the best for me. I was dumbstruck and had no idea what to say. It's been 2 days, and I haven't talked to anyone about this. I don't even know if my mom was being honest or not, but the guilt is just eating away at me. I can't talk to my friends about this, and I definitely can't talk to my family. So, I'm here for answers 84 complaining to my grandparents about my mother when she threatened to kick me out if I didn't pitch in for my stepsister's college fund. Update 1. Okay, so first of all, thanks for all the advice and kind words. I did tell my grandparents about what my mother had told me the other day, and he seemed really skeptical about it because he thought it was really unlikely that my mother intended to save that money for me and was definitely bluffing right now to manipulate me yet again. So, I called her and told her that I thought things over but still would prefer for my grandpa to transfer the ownership of the house to me now, just in case. She sounded a little shocked in the beginning and tried to reassure me that I had nothing to worry about. But when I insisted, she became hostile and started accusing me of not trusting her. So, I argued with her, saying that I couldn't just trust her all of a sudden after years of being treated badly, and she ended up snapping at me, telling me to go to hell and that she didn't even want a daughter like me in the first place. And that just proved what I'd already known, that my mom was just being nice out of the blue so that she wouldn't get evicted and my grandparents and I would let her own the house legally. Well, too bad. She showed me her true colors, so that's not happening anymore. She can go to hell for all I care. But she doesn't want a daughter like me, fine. She won't have me as a daughter anymore because I sure as hell wouldn't want a mother like her. Update 2. The legal process is finally complete, and the house is now officially mine. My mother has already started the process of moving out. Initially, she had just a week, but my grandparents and I were kind enough to extend that to 2 weeks. And now she has around 4 days to be gone. My grandparents are also planning to sell off the house they're residing in currently so that they can move in with me and take care of the house in my absence when I leave for college. I think it's a fabulous idea, and I can't wait to start my new life. Update 3. Hey, so this is probably going to be my last update for a while now that things have finally begun to fall into place for me. My mother moved out today, but not before she handed over the keys to me and reminded me very nastily that I'd regret this in the future. I don't understand why she's so bitter since she was lucky enough to find an apartment close enough to the school and her workplace on such short notice. It's a much smaller place, but she should learn to be grateful like I'm grateful for my wonderful grandparents and my friends who have been nothing but supportive of me ever since I let them know what I've been going through. I'm also thankful for you guys here because, in spite of being complete strangers, everyone here was really kind to me, and I truly appreciate that so much. I'm typing this out on my old laptop in my old room in my old house but with a family who actually loves me now, and in a few months, I'll be moving away to start at a college of my choice. Now, I'm finally living the life I always wanted, and I really couldn't be happier about it. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships. Story 6. Family always chooses my sister, to underestimate my future. I'm a 27-year-old male with a twin sister. Growing up, my twin sister and I experienced very different treatment from our parents. My parents genuinely seemed convinced, for some reason, that my sister was destined for greatness, while I was the so-called black sheep just because I was more interested in playing sports than studying. They constantly compared us, which was demoralizing and bruising. Growing up, I felt pretty low about myself for a long time. When I was a kid, my sister always had these huge fancy parties on our birthdays, and I felt like I was just there, not really noticed. She'd have sleepovers with her pals, giggling and having fun, and I was sometimes pulled into playing tea party games I didn't really want to. But you know what? Secretly, I kind of enjoyed those tea parties too. It felt like my grandma was the only one who really cared about me and my family. Whenever she visited, she made sure to bring my favorite chocolates and sometimes even gave me some money to spoil myself. But things started changing. The attention my twin sister got turned into a sort of emotional bullying towards me. My parents started making fun of my grades and putting down my dreams. It felt as though no matter how much I tried, I could never meet their expectations. Although I was good at sports, they barred me from participating in extracurricular activities as they wanted me to concentrate only on studies, just like my sister. It was frustrating, and I felt helpless as a child. I remember this one incident where I had a particularly heated argument with my parents about my future when I started applying for college because they didn't want to pay for me. While they had set aside money for our college funds, they wanted to use most of the funds on my sister's education. They believed her decision to attend an expensive school would help her excel better. They wanted me to attend a community college instead of a decent college of my choice. My grades were actually pretty good, but my parents didn't seem to want to invest much in me. When my grandmother learned about this, it led to a big fight between her and my parents. She even warned my mom that she'd be cut out of her will if they didn't agree to send me to a good college just like they did for my sister. After a few days of arguing, they finally gave in. I will always be thankful to my grandmother because of this. It was when I went away to college that I first experienced what freedom felt like. For the first time, no one was watching over my shoulders, no one was comparing my grades, and no one was trying to compete with me. I met people and formed friendships with like-minded individuals. Despite the emotional and physical scars I had sustained over the years due to my family, I concentrated on putting it all behind me and enjoying this college experience as much as I could. During this time, I discovered my knack for logo and graphic design. I decided to start learning Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator by watching YouTube videos so I could make some side money. I then reached out to local businesses in my area to see if they needed a logo designer and slowly started building a portfolio of my work. Throughout college, I maintained this side hustle and never asked for a penny from my parents. When I graduated from college, instead of getting a corporate job, I realized I could turn my side hustle into a legitimate business as I already had clients who were ready to keep me on retainers after years of being loyal to them. I made the decision to move into an apartment with roommates, and life was looking up. Meanwhile, my sister was excelling and getting ready for higher studies in biology, at least according to what my parents told me. Our contact dwindled over the years, especially after we went to different colleges. Over the years, my parents never really made any effort to contact me, hence, I stopped trying as well after a while. I mean, I was financially independent now and had been going to therapy for years, so I have started to heal from my childhood wounds slowly. As a graphic designer, I know the custom of reviews is super important. Usually, I ask my clients if they like my work to write a review on Google or Facebook so that it helps more people find out about my business. Recently, one of my high-end clients was really happy with my work, so he posted a long message on Facebook appreciating my professionalism and work ethic. I was really surprised by this sweet gesture, and I started getting messages from strangers who were interested in my work. His post was seen by my entire family and close friends, as he had tagged me, so some of them began leaving comments under the posts congratulating me for doing well. I thought things were finally looking up for me, but that's when everything took a turn for the worse. Suddenly, my parents called me out of nowhere last week, requesting a meeting with me. All these years, they had never shown any interest in my life or even visited me in college, so I was pretty taken aback. I pondered over it for days and even talked with my therapist regarding this. I imagined maybe they had realized the abuse I had gone through as a child and wanted to offer an apology after all these years. I decided to meet them over lunch in a public place just in case things didn't go well and I needed a quick exit. On the day I met them, my father immediately walked in to hug me, but my mother, as usual, maintained her distance and gave a quick smile. We sat down, gave our orders, and exchanged some small talk. I was already feeling anxious and wanted them to just get to the point, so I asked why they reached out to me suddenly after all these years. It was then that my mother dropped a bombshell. My sister, the golden child of the family, was 2 months pregnant, and they had just found out. The news caught me off guard, and I almost choked on my cocktail. Turns out, my sister had a one-night fling with a guy at a party, and now she was expecting a baby. She had only just found out, and because she had never asked for his name, she could not locate the father. As a result, she planned to move back in with our parents, who would support her in taking care of the baby while she attempted to continue her studies from home. The reason my parents contacted me, as they put it, was because they wanted my help financially. They claimed I would soon be an uncle and they expected me to pitch in to care for my sister's upcoming child. My face burned with anger as their words sank in. After a lifetime of feeling like an afterthought, they only reached out to me for my assistance because of my pregnant sister. I immediately signaled the server, requesting the bill, paid it, and abruptly left the restaurant. My mother chased after me, urging me to be a good son and insisting the baby needed a good role model. I reached home and turned off my phone as I kept getting a lot of calls and messages from my parents. After a night's sleep, when I finally switched my phone back on the next day, I found not only missed calls and messages from my mother but also a lengthy text from my sister. In her message, she made demands, insisting that I take care of her child and be a responsible uncle. She told me how I was doing well in my life and earning good money now, so I shouldn't be selfish and could afford to send her a couple of $100 every month to help her take care of the baby. I didn't even bother to reply to her. I cut her call. I just couldn't sleep that night and stayed up in bed for hours wide awake as this whole situation kept bothering me. The condescending tone of my parents, their abuses over the years, and my sister's entitlement were all just too much, and I felt like I couldn't take it anymore. This is when I decided to make a Facebook post from my personal ID regarding my situation. I thought only my family and close friends on Facebook would read this, and I just wanted the truth to be out. I wrote down everything, right down to how unworthy my parents had made me feel over the years and had only reached out when they needed financial assistance. After I posted it, I shut down my laptop and went to sleep. When I woke up the following day, I discovered that the post had gone viral in a matter of hours. There were people from my friend list, relatives, and even complete strangers who had commented their support under my posts, and some had even shared it. It seemed like a lot of people understood the abuse, and the message behind the post resonated with them. There were hundreds of comments from people sharing their own similar stories about family abuses, which was heartbreaking to read. My parents must have received angry calls from some of my relatives because my mother called me quite upset and asked me to delete the post immediately. She explained how she had always thought I wouldn't amount to anything and had doubted my career success, which is why she hadn't reached out to me earlier. However, after seeing the positive review from my client, she realized my business was thriving, and that's when she got in touch to ask for help regarding my sister. She kept insisting on how important it is for us to protect the family's reputation. My dad reacted a bit differently. He sent an apology via text but also wanted me to remove the post so that we could handle the situation privately and prevent any further damage to the family's reputation. My parents seemed to have been caught off guard by this sudden public revelation of our dysfunctional family dynamics. Throughout my life, my family consistently favored my sister and convinced me that I could never achieve success in my career. However, after I wrote the post on Facebook calling them out, they suddenly wanted to play family with me. Despite my parents' multiple pleas to delete the posts, I chose to leave the post as it was to prove them all wrong, so now I can have the last laugh. This decision has now caused a rift within the family. While my grandmother and some other family members have reached out to me and openly provided their support, a few others, especially from my dad's side, are urging me to keep the family matters within the family, so I stay for calling out my parents on Facebook, refusing to take the post down, and finally getting the last laugh after all these years. Update 1. It's been a whirlwind of a week since I last shared my story, and the support and encouragement I have received from everyone have been overwhelming. It's heartening to know that I'm not alone during this time. We come from a close-knit neighborhood, so now everybody knows our business after I posted on Facebook, and it seems that my post has ignited conversations within our social circle. My parents have received criticism not only from relatives but also from their close friends and neighbors who were previously unaware of the extent of favoritism and emotional abuse. I found out from my relatives the reason why my family reached out to me out of the blue. You see, my parents are currently enjoying their retirement, and over the years, they have used up most of their savings to clear their debts and explore the world. My sister has never had a job as my parents wanted her to concentrate only on studies, which meant she didn't have any savings. Now, with the arrival of the baby, they realized they needed financial support. When they came across the Facebook review that my client had written and tagged me, they realized that my business was actually doing good and I was earning more than they had imagined, and they were shocked that I had proved them all wrong and established myself. But instead of wishing me well, they saw this as an opportunity to ask for financial help. However, when I declined and decided to publicly address the issue on Facebook, they had no alternative but to back down. My sister had called me a few days ago after I wrote the post, and as I had expected, she sounded beyond enraged. Apparently, our parents are now refusing to take care of her and the baby financially, as they have realized not to coddle her any longer and want her to be responsible for her own actions. They are okay with my sister moving in as long as she drops her plans for higher studies for now and starts looking for a job with her biology degree. They also want her to contact the father through prenatal paternity testing so she can inform him about the pregnancy. After hearing what my parents had to say, my sister, who had never been asked previously to take any kind of responsibility her entire life, was stumped. She thought she could call and direct her anger out on me, but this time I didn't keep quiet and decided to stand up for myself. I told her that she wasn't entitled to my hard-earned money just because she got pregnant from a one-night stand. I let her know that her lack of maturity wasn't really my problem. While I might have come across as harsh, I believe it marked a turning point in our conversation, making my sister realize she could no longer bully me. I ended the call by feeling a sense of satisfaction for speaking my mind. I then went ahead and sent a group text to my parents and sister, letting them know that I expected a formal apology for the abuse I had suffered. I wanted them to acknowledge the pain of mistreatment I had endured through all those years. The text was clear, stating that this apology was not a mere request, it was a requirement, a necessary step towards reconciliation. I emphasized that I had reached a point where I couldn't continue down the same path. The emotional toll of their actions was too heavy to bear any longer. If they refused to take this step, if they remained unwilling to admit their wrongdoings, it might be the end of the road for our relationship. Now I'm going to wait and see how they react. The ball is in their court, and I hope that they make the right decision. Update 2. Although it's been a month now, I still continue to receive overwhelming support and responses from strangers every day. I feel much lighter since I spoke my truth and no longer have to worry about hiding my past from the world. First, I want to let everyone know that I am perfectly safe and not at all depressed, as many seem to have assumed in the comments. What happened with my parents did affect me initially, but I have since learned to not hold it against them for my own mental well-being, as my therapist explained. I can't really control other people's actions, the only thing that I can control is my own emotions. Since my ultimatum, my parents have tried reaching out to me, alternating between apologies and attempts to downplay the situation. They are still struggling to come to terms with the public exposure of our family problems, and it's clear that their own reputation is of more concern to them than understanding my feelings. After some contemplation, I made the decision to remove the Facebook post from my page, even though I had planned to keep it up forever. I realized that the post had accomplished precisely what I had hoped for, a public declaration calling out my parents for their years of abuse. My mother continues to believe that I could have done better and pointed these things out years earlier to them instead of letting it build up for so long and humiliating them publicly. This really frustrates me because as a teenager, I had always tried to talk to them about the situation, but they never listened to me. I have told her that if she feels that it was my fault for how she treated me, then I would like to take some space from her, as I didn't want this to affect my mental well-being anymore. As for my sister, she took a while, but eventually, she surprised me with an apology. I don't know if it's the pregnancy hormones or a newfound realization that prompted her to reach out. In the lengthy text, she expressed that she could finally grasp the hardships I had to endure for being treated differently all those years. With our parents no longer providing financial support and reminding her every day to take responsibility for her choices, she was experiencing the pressures I had felt growing up. She went on to explain that when she initially found out she was pregnant, it had stirred fear in her heart. The reality of having to handle this on her own hit her hard, and she realized she had made mistakes. Financial constraints loomed, and she acknowledged that she had wrongly directed her anger at me. She had learned from our parents that I was doing well in my career, and this made her think that she could ask me to contribute, but when I refused, it finally dawned on her that she would have to take responsibility for her own life. She told me that she was trying her best to find a job as she wanted to be a better example to her child. She apologized for asking me for money and assured me that she wouldn't be doing that ever again. She said that she wanted me to be a part of her baby's life as a positive male role model. Although I was a bit hesitant, I accepted the apology, and we met over lunch. I was also happy to hear that she was looking for a job, and I promised to help her out with her resume and cover letter. Since we started talking, my sister has been suggesting that we should talk to our parents about what I went through so they can understand my perspective better, but I don't think I'm ready yet to have a conversation with them. I finally paid the long overdue visit to my grandmother this weekend. She's been my rock, my pillar of support, always standing by my side through all these years. It was high time I expressed my heartfelt thanks for everything she has done for me. When I visited her, the nostalgia of my childhood rushed back. The familiar scent of her home-cooked meals, the creaky wooden floors, and the warm smile on her face were everything that I loved about her. We spent the entire afternoon talking about our lives, dreams, family. She told me that she was proud of me for standing up to my parents after all these years. She let me know that she had always pointed out my parents' unfair treatment towards me, but they had never acknowledged it. I told her that regardless of what my parents had put me through, I didn't blame her, and I wanted her to know that her kindness towards me had profoundly shaped my life. Now, coming to my graphic design business, which a lot of you have been curious about, it is doing exceptionally well, just as I had expected. Ever since my high-end client left a positive review of my work, my inbox has been flooded with inquiries. The satisfaction of knowing that clients appreciate my work is immeasurable. It's not just about the growth of my business but the validation that I'm on the right path. Each new inquiry feels like a step closer to my goals and ignites a sense of passion and motivation to keep pushing forward. It's truly thrilling to see that all the efforts and hard work I've poured into this are finally paying off. Overall, I would say that this whole experience has been tough but also incredibly liberating. For now, I plan on focusing on my work, personal growth, and spending my time with supportive friends and family members only. Although the path to healing is a long one, and I don't know where it will lead, I am thankful for the outpouring of support and understanding I have received here from the Reddit community. While I have taken small steps towards mending relationships with my family, I am committed to prioritizing my own well-being first and ensuring that I'm not subject to emotional abuse or favoritism any longer. I will continue to share updates if there is anything interesting. Update 3. Things have really turned out well, and a lot has changed in my life in the past 6 months. One of the most beautiful and life-changing experiences has been meeting my niece. My sister, who was pregnant, had given birth to the most adorable baby girl. She asked me to be her godfather, and I couldn't feel more honored by this special role. It's a new chapter in our family story, and I'm looking forward to watching this little one grow up. In the past few months, my parents have put in sincere efforts to mend our relationship. It turns out that my grandmother and other relatives had a heart-to-heart talk with them, and it seems to have made a difference. My mother, in particular, has been trying hard to connect with me on a deeper level. She admitted to feeling both embarrassed and regretful that she couldn't be a better parent to me. Her genuine apology moved me to tears because these were the words I had longed to hear for so many years. I couldn't help but think about how different things might have been if she had spoken to me with these words during my upbringing, potentially sparing me years of suffering and pain. My dad, on the other hand, has suggested teaching me golf, emphasizing how learning the sport could potentially help me attract more high-end clients. Golf has turned out to be more challenging than I initially anticipated, and it certainly requires some dedicated practice to master. Nevertheless, I enjoy practicing with my dad every weekend and steadily improving with each session. My relationship with my sister has also evolved significantly over time. We now regularly meet for Saturday morning breakfast, where we catch up on each other's lives. We also found out the father of her child and reaching out to him. Both of them agreed on a court-signed document to co-parent the child together. I have met the guy, and he seems like a genuine fellow. Since becoming a mother, my sister has been working hard to change herself. She seems to have realized the importance of understanding and empathy, something that was long overdue. Moreover, she has secured a work-from-home opportunity that suits her well. She is diligently saving money to move out of our parents' house, and it's heartening to see her make positive strides in her life. To help repair the long-standing resentments in our family and unspoken feelings, we have all planned to go for family therapy soon. It hasn't been an easy process, and at times our conversations seem to get emotionally charged, hence, going for therapy will allow us to have more honest conversations. Professionally, I've seen considerable growth in my graphic design business thanks to the skills I have developed over the years. I absolutely love my job, and I am grateful for my career. I'm glad I found my true calling early in life, and there's nothing I find more satisfying than working on my designs and assisting my clients. I have managed to expand my client base to an international level after multiple positive reviews from my existing customer base. If everything goes well, I plan on hosting free workshops to help college students and aspiring graphic designers with my industry knowledge. I remember the struggles I faced when I was new to this field and no one to guide me, so I'm hoping my workshops can make a difference for these folks. I'm excited about the future and the opportunities it holds for both my career and my life. Life is good for me now, and I couldn't be more grateful for the love and support I received from everyone these past couple of months. I hope this can be my last update regarding this situation. Story 6. Toxic parents wanted to control my life, so I moved out at 18 and started a successful business. Now they're trying to sabotage me every step. My parents have never liked me. You see, they were high school sweethearts and even went to the same college. They had big plans to travel the world and experience different cultures, but all of those dreams were shattered when my mother found out she was pregnant while they were still in college. They wanted to terminate the pregnancy, but their parents did not allow them to do so. Eventually, my mother had to drop out of college to stay with her parents because she could not take all the people staring and gossiping about her. This is how I was born. My mother hated me, but my grandparents absolutely adored me. For a very long while, I thought my mother was actually my sister and my grandparents were my parents, since my mother never spent any time with me. She would ignore me or scream at me if I tried to get her attention. My dad also would never come to see me, so I had no idea that he even existed. My parents were still dating during this time. Now don't get me wrong, I understand that my parents did not want a child, but I was just a child and I did not understand their hate for me. Nevertheless, my mom's parents and dad's parents would spend time with me, babysit me, and treat me well. By the time my dad graduated college, I had started to walk and talk a bit. I guess this is when he started to feel a bit guilty for not being there for me. He started to come every weekend to visit me. I thought he was just a friend of my grandparents. My mother hated seeing my dad spending time with me and would always tell him how it was best just to ignore me. But my grandparents encouraged my dad to get to know me, and this is how I found out who my real dad was. Once he got a job, he proposed to my mom, and they moved in together. My dad wanted me to move in with them so they could start taking care of me, but my mom was vehemently against this. My grandparents were getting old and wanted my parents to take responsibility for their actions. Begrudgingly, my parents stepped up for me, and at the age of 5, I moved in with them. To say I hated living with my parents would be an understatement. It was like all the light and goodness in my life disappeared and was replaced by dark and gloomy clouds. Every day, my mother would remind me that I should be thankful for staying at their place, and if I did something wrong, she would kick me out. My dad was working the whole day and would come home late at night. If I wanted to spend time with him, he would tell me how he needed some time alone and would urge me to go to bed, telling me that he didn't have the bandwidth to handle me that day. I went from living with my loving grandparents to living with my parents who absolutely despised me. Now, I was too young to understand why, but I did understand how unwanted I felt at their place. My parents would buy me no toys and no ice creams like every other kid. Sometimes, I would go to school without my assignment being completed, so then my teacher would call up my mom to question her about it. My mom would later scream at me that I was a lazy person and that I should take responsibility for my studies. I was so terrified of my mom that I started to do my homework as best as I could every day after school because I thought doing so would make her accept me eventually. But she never did. My dad didn't care a single penny about what I was doing the whole day or how well I was doing in school and continued to live his life in his own bubble. When I started growing up, I slowly started to understand how different my parents were compared to other kids' parents. I would see other parents drop off their kids, hug them, kiss them, and smile at them. I never had any of that. It was like I was living with two strangers, and this made me question if I wasn't the biological kid of my parents. Perhaps I would question my grandparents whenever I went to visit them, and they would assure me that I was very much my parents' child and would tell me that my parents just needed some time to grow up. Meanwhile, my mother would say hurtful things to me whenever she could. She would make fun of my hair, my glasses, and my weight, and would tell me things like if she was in high school with me, then she would have bullied me so much, which was just weird to hear. I remember that I have always been allergic to milk, and my grandparents have known this as well. But my mother would refuse to accept that, and one day she forced me to drink milk, telling me how I was just making up my allergies to try to be cool and how kids of her time never had any allergies. This resulted in me being admitted to the hospital. My mother got shaken up when police officers came to talk to her about the incident, and after that, she learned her lesson and never gave me any milk. My dad also yelled at her about it, and she started to cry. My grandparents had rushed to the hospital to be with me, and there was a lot of discussion while I was recovering. After this incident, my parents softened a bit towards me. My mother started to wake me up for school and help me get ready, and my dad would spend time with me in the evening and tuck me into bed. I don't know what flipped inside them, but they started to treat me like a human. It was weird to see my mom ask me about school or my dad invite me to watch football games with him. This is how I started to get to know my parents better. I think I was born with a lot of empathy because I didn't hold any resentment for my parents whatsoever. The three of us would go to the beach sometimes on the weekends, which is still one of my favorite memories. I was no longer jealous of the kids in my class because my parents also started to treat me with some love. When I turned 15, I realized that I had a knack for crocheting, which my grandma, my mom's mother, had started to teach me. My grandpa had passed away by this time, and my grandma would sometimes crochet and sell her beautiful handmade creations at the local craft fair every year to earn a few $100. The intricate patterns and vibrant colors she used would fascinate me, and I would eagerly absorb every detail of her craft. As I spent more time honing my crocheting skills under her guidance, a deep passion for creating unique and personalized items began to bloom within me. One day, inspired by my grandmother's entrepreneurial spirit, I decided to try my hand at selling my own crochet creations. With her encouragement, I set up a small booth at the same local craft fair where she showcased her work. The response was overwhelming, and I quickly realized that my passion could also be a source of income. Word spread about my talent, and soon I found myself taking custom orders from classmates, friends, and even people in the community. Each piece I crafted told a story, and customers were drawn to the idea of owning something handmade and unique. As my small business grew, so did my skills and creativity. I began experimenting with different yarn textures, colors, and patterns, pushing the boundaries of traditional crochet. My creations evolved from simple scarves and blankets to intricate wearables and home decor items. The positive feedback and repeat customers fueled my determination to refine my craft further. When I started to earn significant money, my grandmother suggested that I should have a savings account so I could save this money for college. When I talked with my parents about this, their eyes widened in shock hearing about what I had been earning. Until then, they thought it was just my stupid hobby. But when they realized that I was earning quite well for someone of my age, they vehemently refused. My dad threatened to burn all my pieces and told me how he wasn't working so hard to pay for my education for me to waste my time on these stupid things, and my mother told me that I was banned from going to my grandma's place. They demanded that I give them the money I had earned, but when I told them that it was all with grandma, they called her up and started to yell at her. When my grandma found out that they were trying to steal my money from me, she basically refused to give them anything, while my parents screamed at her about how they deserved every cent. This is how I realized that my parents had never changed over the years. They were very much the same, selfish and self-serving. I could not just give up my passion for crocheting, and I wasn't going to lose out on earning money from this successful side business, which could potentially help me through college. Seeing how my parents were behaving, there was a good chance they might not even send me to college, so I needed to take matters into my own hands and work for my future. I had to come up with a plan so I could go to my grandma's place every weekend and work on my designs. I started to lie to my parents and tell them how I was spending time and sleeping over at my best friend's place, who also knew about the entire situation with my parents and supported me. I would then go to my grandma's place, and we would crochet away so we could fill in the pouring orders from our clients. While my grandma continued to play a pivotal role in building my business, I also embraced different online platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook to reach a broader audience. Social media became a powerful tool for showcasing my work and connecting with fellow artisans. The digital realm opened up endless possibilities, allowing me to share my passion with a global community. As the years passed, my small booth at the local craft fair transformed into a thriving online business. My grandmother helped me open a bank account with her as the co-owner of the account. I trusted my grandma inexplicably, and it was thanks to her that I could save up all the money I was earning for my college. My grandma believed in me when my own parents wanted to just take away my money for their own use. Once my mother went through my phone without me knowing about it and she found out about my online business and how I was still operating it behind their back. This resulted in a huge fight with my parents screaming at me and my grandma. They demanded that I withdraw all the money I had earned and give it to them since they had raised me and taken care of me all my life. I was on the verge of tears while trying to make them understand that this was for my college and that I wasn't really doing any harm to anyone. My dad screamed that I had gone behind their back and that he could not trust me anymore. My mother asked me to delete my Instagram page and stood right next to me to check if I was really deleting it. I cleverly deactivated my account instead so that later I could activate my account once I was free from my parents. Then they implemented strict phone restrictions from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. They also started tracking my location and monitoring my entire internet history with notifications triggered if I searched for anything deemed bad, even innocuous things like shopping for underwear. I was allowed to go out with my friends only twice a week, but I had to come straight home afterward, otherwise, they would call me and my friends multiple times. Occasionally, I was allowed to hang out with my grandma for a couple of hours after school, but they banned me from doing any crocheting with her, otherwise, they threatened to take away my phone and internet access. There were so many days that I just wanted to run away, but I was still 17 and had no way out. I requested my parents to let me have a part-time job at the local cafe, which they allowed but told me that I had to pay them 30% of what I was earning. I agreed without any fights. I would give them 30% of my earning every week, and the rest 70% I would give to my grandma to deposit in my bank account. My parents would continue to make my life difficult by regularly barging into my room at odd times to check my room, go through my chats and emails, and monitor my location. If I didn't listen to them or follow their rules, I was either grounded or they would force me to give them more of my earnings that week. Regardless of what my parents were putting me through, I concentrated on working hard at school and getting good grades. I knew that I needed to get into a good college to escape this life, so I worked my ass off. The night before I was going to turn 18, I packed up whatever it was that I had bought for myself and left other things like my clothes and my phone in the room. I made sure to wipe my phone clean so they would not find out anything about me. I also knew my parents would not allow me to take anything that they had brought for me, so I didn't take any of their stuff. The plan was already set. My grandma came to pick me up early in the morning so I could finally move in with her. My parents were shocked to see me moving out and started fighting with my grandma, saying they were going to involve the police. I told them to go ahead since I was 18 now and could do whatever I wanted. My parents then tried to blackmail me and said how they would tell everyone about what an ungrateful daughter I was and that everyone would shun me for leaving my parents. But I did not care. They even threatened that they would not help me for college, but I just smiled since I had saved up enough and was even up for a scholarship, so I no longer needed their help. As I walked out of the house, I felt a mix of fear, relief, and determination. Little did I know my journey was about to take an unexpected turn. The first few weeks at my grandma's place were a breath of fresh air. The strict restrictions were lifted, and I could finally breathe without the constant monitoring. The first thing I did was buy myself a new phone and get a new mobile number. Next, I went to the bank with grandma and took all my relevant documents so I could convert my minor account to an individual account. I was so happy to finally get my own card, an account where I no longer had to ask for anyone's permission. I also deactivated my Instagram account so I could get back to my crocheting business. My grandma was very supportive and even offered me a small space in her house to set up a makeshift studio so I could get back to crocheting. Just a week after I had moved out of my parents' place, I found out from relatives and old neighbors that my parents had set up a party where they were finally celebrating their independence. Apparently, they were extremely happy that this was the start of their new family free from the burden of having me around and were telling people how they finally could live child-free. They had invited other child-free friends and had posted multiple pictures of them laughing and drinking throughout the night with not a care in the world. Initially, the news stung. The fact that my own parents were celebrating my absence just a week after I had left them, showcasing their newfound freedom, felt like a cruel twist of fate. My dad's parents were also shocked to hear them celebrating, and they tried to reach out to me. They would travel a lot in their RV, exploring around the country, so it had been years since I had talked with them. When they finally got my new number from one of my cousins, they immediately called me, asking me about everything. I told them the truth about what had happened between me and my parents and how I had left home. They were shocked to hear how my parents had been abusing me. They questioned me why I didn't reach out to them for help, but I told them about how my parents would monitor my phone, so I wasn't allowed to talk to a lot of people except a handful of friends and my grandma. This is when my dad's parents told me about how my parents never wanted me in the first place, but they thought they had changed over the years. Once I moved in with my parents and begged me to forgive them for not being there for me through all this, they also talked with my grandma, who told them about the various fights she had with my parents in order to protect me. After this, my dad's parents took it upon themselves to tell each and every family member about what my parents had put me through. Slowly the news spread through my relatives and family friends, and everyone started calling me and offering their support. I was surprised to see how sympathetic everyone was to my plight. Some even offered me monetary compensation, but I would refuse and tell them about my crocheting business and how they could help me by spreading the word so I could get more clients. This is how my business started to slowly pick up. During this time, I had been accepted into my dream college with a full scholarship. My life was finally about to change for the better. It wasn't very far from my grandma's place, so I could come and visit her every weekend and spend time with her or work on my crocheting. My dad's parents decided to gift me their old car, which needed a bit of repairing but was manageable, so it would be easier for me to come back to my grandma's place. During this time, one of my friends who had been working for a local newspaper reached out to me and asked me if she could write a story on me since there were not a lot of young entrepreneurs in our area who had their own businesses like me. She told me how my story could inspire other youngsters to find their own path. After some thinking, I agreed to sit for an interview. I honestly didn't think it was a big deal since my business still needed a lot of work, but nevertheless, I hoped that if there was a kid out there like me stuck in a toxic environment, they would read my story and feel inspired by it. When my story came out, it felt surreal to see my own story in the paper. I know it is a very small achievement to be featured in your local paper, but for the first time in a very long time, I felt proud of the fact that I worked so hard on my business despite all the difficulties. My grandma was extremely proud of me, and other relatives and friends started reaching out to me, congratulating me for this success. This was a new feeling since my parents had never supported nor complimented me about my hard work while growing up. My parents must have read the story as well, so they called my grandma to scream at her about how I betrayed them by going behind their back. They told me and grandma that since I had started the business while still living with them, I needed to not only give them credit publicly since relatives had been bashing them ever since I told them about their controlling behavior, but that I needed to share with them my profits as well. They threatened to take me to court, but my grandma told them that I had done all the business under her roof so they could try going to court over it if they wanted because they would lose. I was so pissed at how my parents were behaving that I wanted to scream and yell at them, but I knew I could not do that. So instead, I organized a small celebration and invited my close family members and friends so we could celebrate the success of my hard work and business. I was anyways going away to college, so I felt like I deserved one last tray with people who genuinely loved me. We had a great time throughout the night. Of course, word got spread to my parents, and I don't know how, but they got my hands on my new number, so they have been texting me about how I'm just an ungrateful daughter and about how they wish they never had me. My dad had even sent a long text about how he spent all his life providing for me, and yet here I was wasting away my money by celebrating with other people. I'd for having a party to celebrate with my loved ones when my parents also had a celebration after I moved out. Update 1. When I posted my story on Reddit, I had no idea it would blow up. In just a few days, I have seen my story on TikTok, and it scares me that my parents might find out about this. For my sake, please pray that they don't find out anything. Now, as per the comments, I understand that a lot of people want me to block my parents permanently, and I plan on doing exactly that. However, I do want to send them a final email telling them about everything that they have put me through so they know exactly what I have been going through. I am not a doormat like some of you have been calling me. I am just a kid who had extremely toxic parents, and it's difficult for me to drop them. Society always teaches us about how our parents always want the best for us, but no one ever teaches us about what to do when you end up with toxic parents and how to cut them off. I understand if some of you are blaming me for letting my parents walk all over me, but please do understand that I am young, and I am learning slowly to stand up for myself. Update 2. Hi everyone, thank you to some of the people who have reached out to me with supportive messages and let me know about similar situations they have gone through. Now, as I had updated earlier, I did write an email to my parents. My grandma also helped me pen down my thoughts more clearly. I am just going to copy and paste the email content here. Dear Mom and Dad, I've spent a considerable amount of time reflecting on our past, present, and the potential future of our relationship. It's with a heavy heart that I've come to the realization that for my own well-being and growth, I need to sever ties with you both. I have spent my entire childhood yearning for your love and attempting to meet your expectations, but for some reason, I was never enough. Over the years, I've worked tirelessly to understand the reasons behind your apparent dislike for me and strive to be accepted into your lives, but you both never accepted me. From the earliest memories when Mom forced me to drink milk despite my allergies to the times I felt like a stranger in my own home, your actions have shaped my perception of how toxic our family is. Yet through it all, I held on, hoping for a change, for a connection that never happened. Unfortunately, when I found solace and purpose in crocheting, thanks to Grandma's guidance, I thought it might bridge the gap between us as I built my business. Your attempts to undermine and control me only solidified my decision to break free from the toxic environment. Your insistence on claiming a share of my hard-earned money, threatening legal action, and attempting to control my celebrations only further highlight how toxic you all are for me. I want you to understand that this decision is not an act of revenge or an expression of anger, it's an act of self-preservation, a step toward building a life that is free from toxicity and filled with the love and support that every child deserves. I harbor no ill will toward either of you, but I need to prioritize my mental and emotional well-being. I thank you both for pushing me to become independent and for underestimating the potential within me, and I wish you both the best in your future endeavors. I hope you both are finally happy without me. I request that you respect my decision to no further contact. Let us part ways amicably. I won't lie, but I had tears while writing this email to my parents. I know that I should be strong and remember for all the bad things they have done to me, but it's so hard to cut off your parents. As children, we are conditioned to love them, and it's difficult to come out of that thinking. After sending the email, I blocked them from everywhere. In a few days, I will be going away to college, so I'm a bit nervous about it. My grandma and my dad's parents are going to help me move into my new dormitory. I am excited about meeting new people and having new friends. To everyone asking, my crocheting business is doing well, and I won't quit it regardless of my college. I love making unique designs, and this is my passion, so I will work hard to manage it with my studies. This is the only update I have for now. Update 3. Wow, it's been 6 months since my last update. I can't believe it's been so long and how different my life is now. First and foremost, I am thriving in college. The classes are challenging, but I'm putting in the effort to maintain good grades. I know in the long run, despite my crocheting business, I need a college degree to fall back on. I have also made some incredible friends in college. Thanks to them, I even get more orders to crochet. College life has allowed me to explore new horizons and meet different people. It's a refreshing change from the isolation I felt back home. I even have a boyfriend now, called Kyle. I mean, it's just been 2 months since we started dating, and we are still getting to know each other. He is a sweet guy, so we will see how this goes. Every weekend, I make it a point to visit my grandma. We have been working from her makeshift studio to fulfill our crochet orders. The business is booming, and the positive response from our clients is overwhelming. It's amazing how pursuing my passion has not only provided financial stability but also a sense of purpose and fulfillment in my life. As for my parents, it's been a quiet 6 months since my heartfelt email. They haven't attempted to contact me. My grandparents informed me that my parents received a lot of flack from everyone, hence, they decided to sell everything and move out of the country, likely seeking a fresh start away. I don't know where they are, and truth be told, I don't really care. The fact that they chose to leave without any attempt at reconciliation or even a single apology speaks volumes. I genuinely hope they find happiness wherever they have gone and can pursue the things they have always wanted to do. It's time for me to focus on my journey and continue building the life I have always dreamed of. I want to express my gratitude to all of you who have been following my story and offering words of encouragement. Your support has meant the world to me. If there's one lesson I have learned through all of this, it's the importance of surrounding yourself with people who uplift and believe in you. Thanks to my grandma and friends who believed in me. This will probably be my last update. Thank you, everyone. Story 7. Blocked her after she dumped me over text. Now XGF is crying cause she won't get closure. My ex-girlfriend of 3 years broke up with me Sunday night over text. She told me that she felt like my lack of ambition was holding her back and she needed to move on with her life because she felt like I didn't value her. When she sent me that, I just sent okay and blocked her and fell asleep shortly after. I did not block her friends and had loads of messages yesterday morning when I woke up. They were asking me to unblock her and to talk to her. My sister, 20F, is also friends with my ex-girlfriend and she told me that my ex was hurt by my sudden blocking and that she still wanted to talk to me for closure and wanted to make sure I was okay. I told my sister that I was okay and that I didn't want to talk to my ex but would like it if she could tell her I appreciate her checking on me. My sister was not happy with this and told me that it was a hard decision for my ex and she just wants to talk to me. I again told her I was fine and that I'd rather not. My sister then told me that I'm acting insanely calm for being broken up with someone I was with for 3 years. I again told her I was fine. She asked me if I cried and I told her that I didn't and I just fell asleep listening to music. My sister told me that she's concerned about my lack of emotion and told me that my behavior isn't normal. I told her that I'm not obligated to cry over anything and I think it's weird that she was acting like I was. My sister once again told me that it wouldn't hurt to have one conversation with my ex because she was still worried about me and wanted to stay friends. I once again told her that I was fine and didn't want to talk to her. She told me that my lack of compassion is psychotic. That pissed me off, so I just started ignoring her and she eventually left me alone. This morning, when I woke up, my sister sent me a bunch of text messages again, so I just blocked her, and because of this she went and told our parents and they are upset with me for blocking my ex without communicating first. They said that we've been together long enough and they thought of her as a second daughter. I was just aggravated at this point and told them that I'd appreciate it if they mind their business, but they didn't stop, so I told them that I wouldn't hesitate to block them too if they continue, which caused them to stop. They apologized to me and told me that they didn't mean any harm but just felt like it was a little inconsiderate of me to just block her without talking about it first, but they won't press me to talk to her if I don't want to. Update. This happened like exactly a week ago. So I apologize for not updating. I genuinely was not thinking about this at the time. Basically, my ex showed up at my parents' house during Easter with my sister. My parents and I weren't even made aware that she was coming. She told us that she only came because she had no other way to communicate with me. She told me that she was extremely hurt by me blocking her right off the bat because it made her feel like I actually didn't care about her at all. She said she thought that I would have loved her enough to try and better myself for her. I was confused by this, to be honest. I told her that she said I was holding her back and she needed to move on. If anyone told me that I was holding them back in life, I probably would have blocked them too. I told her that even if she didn't say that, I still wouldn't have begged her to stay. We kinda talked a little more after that, and then she got my sister to take her back home. When my sister came back, she was mad at me again because she said that I caused my ex to cry and I'm simply punishing her for caring about me. My parents are mad at my sister though, because they said it was unnecessary for her to do that at their house because it made the atmosphere awkward for everyone. Other than that, I've really just been chilling. I don't think Ima will try to date anybody else soon though, or at least not someone my sister is friends with because it makes me uncomfortable with how much she's invested in my life. Relevant comments? Cute16, are you kidding? She says she doesn't want to date you and then is mad when you cut contact? She can't have it both ways. She dumped you. She chose to end it. She's a huge asshole for making her inability to deal with her emotions about the breakup your problem. Like, why should you babysit her emotions when she fucking dumped you? OP. Thank you. I don't understand why everyone was making it seem like I was in the wrong when I wasn't even the one who broke up with her. Kelly14. She might also be trying to stay in the friend group and trying to make it so things aren't awkward. Fuck that NTA. OP. I doubt it. Her friends aren't my friends. I was just friendly with them because I was dating her. All of her friends are blocked. iStar012. Please go on a date with someone new ASAP. Make sure your sister knows. Go somewhere nice. If this isn't doable, fake the date. Hilarity will ensue. OP. Lamau, my friend actually suggested I do this as well, but I wasn't comfortable with the idea. I feel like it'll just cause unnecessary drama, and I'm just trying to relax for real. Limro O. NTA. She can't have it both ways. She can't dump you and then expect to still maintain as much contact as she pleases. And nobody is stopping her from still being friends with your sister, so it's not like your parents won't still get to see their second daughter sometimes. You don't owe her or anyone else closure about how your relationship ended, period. If I were in your shoes, the thing I would very much like to say to the sister is this. She left me so she could focus on herself. She should be doing that now, or else her breaking up with me was pointless, wasn't it? I would say that I didn't see the part where Op felt nothing, just that he didn't want to talk about it. People process things differently. Just because Op didn't cry and skip the denial and anger and bargaining steps of grief doesn't mean they aren't upset or sad or grieving, just that they aren't behaving as everyone else expected. Let's dive into the second story. Story 2. I think my girlfriend has been trying to get me fired from all my jobs. I'm M24 and I've been with GF, F29, let's call her Janice, for 2.5 years. I just finished my education when we started dating and I have been doing all sorts of jobs since. Sometimes 2 at a time. I did this to expand my resume and gather job experience. I worked in cafes, bookstores, a library, a grocery store and as an English tutor. Most of those jobs lasted about 3 to 5 months. My shortest stay was 2.5 weeks, my longest 8 months, but since I didn't have a hard time applying for new positions, I tried to block it out, though it was kind of eating me up internally. People called to complain about me, people left bad reviews about me, people used my employee Wi-Fi access to look up sketchy things on the internet under my name, former employees called to inform them about me, right name and all, and much more subtle stuff that I couldn't disprove. But I was too anxious to do anything about it. I just told my girlfriend, she comforted me, she supported me every time I got my life ruined by these people. But I kept going, though they kept finding me. Fast forward to this week. I currently hold a part-time position at a bakery. I've been working there for 2.5 months. It's going okay, but my manager approached me about something regarding our Google reviews. Someone was complaining about an employee, and their description of them could only really fit me. It was on a day where we're pretty short of staff, so I could have been the only person in the store on that day for all I know. Anyway, their review contained some pretty elaborate and nasty comments about me. This has happened on 1 or 2 of my jobs already. I told my manager that it was all pretty bogus and that someone had a vendetta against me, as it has happened before. She believed me, and told me that she'll dismiss the comment. On my break, I checked out the review myself. Their username was kinda stupid. I'm not gonna type it out here since I still work there, but I'll just call them Mick Myrtle as it was in the same range of sounds kinda fake but not really. Anyway, I come home but don't tell Janice about it. She has heard it all before, so I didn't see the point in complaining about another time I almost lost my position. We chat, all is well, and she leaves the room. Her phone is on the table, and suddenly, she gets a notification or an email of some sort from Google. I don't remember what it said exactly, but the pop-up reads something along the lines of Mick Myrtle, manager has responded to your review. My heart dropped. I've been trying to ignore it since. This was 2 days ago. It just fits in the picture of bad reviews. It fits in the picture of the phone complaints my workplaces have received about me in the past. It fits in the picture of all the sketchy things I've been fired for. Why would she do that, though? I'm looking for an explanation. This literally can't be. She's the only thing keeping me sane. I don't know what to do. Update. Hello people who are still invested. I'm sorry for not updating you guys earlier, a lot has been going on. First of all, yes, we broke up. That's why I'll be referring to her as my ex from now on. Anyway, let's start from the beginning. On the Monday of the following week I couldn't take the uncertainty anymore. I told my ex I needed her booking account to book a train ticket to visit my dad for a few days. She complied, and when she was in the shower getting ready for work, I booked my ticket and started looking through her emails. After some digging, I found an email to herself which contained a spreadsheet file. I sent the file to myself, printed it out and took a screenshot. Why? The spreadsheet contained about every single information about me that there was. Numbers, emails, passwords, work times, colleagues, their numbers and social media, as well as some emails and passwords that she used for accounts to ruin my life with. Everything was on there, conveniently sorted for her to ruin my life as efficiently as possible. When she left for work, I decided it would be best to immediately pack my stuff. Nothing that mattered would be left behind. I felt like a wanted man. Like I was being hunted despite nothing being seemingly out of place. I called my boss, told her I would be taking some time off from work, and headed out to see my dad. Needless to say, he was the sanity I needed. I cried about everything I saw, I panicked for a whole 2 days straight, about how my life was ruined and I didn't know what to do. He had to sleep on the couch in the guest room because I was so scared of my ex coming in. He handled it like a champ. I love you, Dad. He called the police, a lawyer and most recently a therapist for me, because I was in the most horrible state of my entire life. We're currently sorting out the legal stuff. I haven't talked to my ex, except for letting her know it was over and that she's a sick psychopath. My dad handled the rest. I changed all my passwords and I'm now looking for a place to live. Sorry for the brief update, my mind is tangled. Please ask questions if you want to know more. Edit. By the way, thank you to every single person who gave me advice, talked to me over DMs, and was generally concerned about me. I appreciate every single one of you. Update 2. And some of y'all came here quite recently. I've answered all of the DMs so far, and, before I let the next batch of people wait, you'd think there wouldn't be after 2 years, I'll give you a quick update. Spoiler, it isn't that interesting.
TLDR. We ended up not taking her to court over it.
This is quite controversial, considering the abhorrent things she's done to me, but I do not regret this decision. The satisfaction of seeing her get punished would have been overshadowed by the sheer amount of dread, anxiety and fear I would have faced in those court hearings. I was a nervous mess, I couldn't eat for weeks without throwing up. My dad had to settle most of the important stuff because I physically couldn't. Thank you, Dad. On the bright side, our lawyers settled the situation beautifully in private and I haven't had any problems with her since, that I am aware of. I've moved houses, got a stable job and found the closure and justice I was looking for through therapy. I hope she did as well. We've had zero contact since then and I still haven't read any of the messages she sent me those years ago. Of course I'm nowhere near done with my journey, I still have all of my social media accounts set to private and insist on keeping a low profile online. I still get anxiety, especially when there's problems at work. But I haven't had any panic attacks in months and my therapist has been great. I don't know how she's doing, I don't know if she's moved on, or if she's seen this story float around the web. Hello YouTube, TikTok and Snapchat. I don't know how much she knows about how my life is currently going, but nothing's happened since then that I could attribute to her schemes. Sorry if this update is kind of a jumbled mess, I just woke up and I've repressed a lot of what happened. Thank you all for your kind messages. Cheers.